Divorce me right now. Though honestly, I doubt you could live alone. My husband, Sebastian, sneered at me, taunting with that smug look on his face. I once loved him, but now, I couldn't imagine feeling anything but contempt. He looked so confident, so sure he'd won. I took a deep breath, trying to keep calm. Actually, I'm fine with that. Are you sure you're okay with that? Huh? Trying to act all tough now. Sebastian chuckled, mocking me with a twisted, mean-spirited grin. His face was contorted, radiating an ugly superiority that was hard to ignore. Nothing I say will get through to him now, even though I knew he'd regret it soon enough. There was no point in warning him. I picked up my packed bags, took my daughter, and left without looking back. The next day, I could almost imagine his desperate screams echoing through the house. My name is Rachel, and I'm 37. Sebastian, my husband, who's a year older, and I have been married for 7 years. We're a dual-income couple. We have a 5-year-old daughter, Claire, and we had been living a pretty normal, happy family life. Sebastian is what people would call a high achiever. After graduating from a prestigious college, he joined a major corporation. It was almost certain that he'd get promoted to an executive position by his 30s, or so they said. We met at a gathering a friend set up for us. We dated for nearly a decade, and I have to admit, I used to feel a bit proud for landing such a good catch. But lately, Sebastian has been working long hours, and every day he comes home exhausted. It's common for him to get home after midnight, and sometimes he even stays overnight at the office. At first, I'd stay up, waiting for him to come back home, keeping the lights on in the living room just for him. But when he walked in and saw me waiting, he'd give me this odd, unreadable look. "Oh, you're still up. Yo, welcome home. Thanks. Did you need something? What? You're up this late? So you must have something to talk about, right? Is it about Claire?" "No, I was just waiting for you to get home, that's all." Sebastian's tone was a bit harsh, and I felt myself shrink back a little. "Really? There's nothing going on? Then you don't have to wait up for me. You've got work in the morning too, don't you?" "Well, yes, but look, when you wait up for me like that, it makes me feel tense, like something's wrong. I come home to unwind, you know. Can't you see that? I get it, but I'll just warm up something for dinner, or I can eat out if it's a bother. It's going to be busy like this for a while, so don't push yourself." Sebastian said this as he walked toward the bathroom, likely to take a shower. I couldn't help but feel a little sad, wondering if this was what marriage was supposed to be like. Still, it could be worse. He could be demanding I stay up, wait, or do everything for him the moment he's home. So I decided to look at it that way, and not dwell on it too much. From then on, I followed Sebastian's advice, and stopped waiting up for him. And I didn't go out of my way to take care of him when he got home late. I wouldn't say I had more free time now that I'd stopped doing those things. But once I decided not to worry about it anymore, I started sleeping soundly through the night. Feeling a bit guilty, I slept well, woke up refreshed, and went to work. Sebastian's work pace only kept increasing, and weekend shifts became the norm. "Dad, are you working again today?" Claire, hugging her stuffed animal, asked with a lonely expression. Sebastian, as if realizing the effect on her, gently patted her head. "Yay, Dad's really busy." "I'm sorry, Claire. I haven't been able to play with you lately." "It's okay, Dad. Do your best at work." "Yay, I will. You know, when things settle down, how about we go to an amusement park?" "Really? Promise?" "Yeah, I promise." I watched warmly as Sebastian and Claire exchanged that promise. But unfortunately, that promise was never fulfilled. Our schedules became so mismatched that we barely saw each other anymore. And naturally, conversations disappeared too. Realizing this wasn't good, I started sending messages to encourage Sebastian. But he always replied curtly with a "yo" or "I'm fine." Well, getting a reply at all was something, I suppose. Eventually, it became normal for him to just leave my messages on read, or not even open them. Even so, I kept telling myself it was because he was just so busy with work. Then one day, what's this? I noticed an envelope left in the living room. The company name was on the edge of it. Could it be something Sebastian forgot? I thought, and sent him a message to confirm. As I expected, it was his. "Is it something important? Should I bring it to you at work? It'd help if you could bring it. But are you sure you're okay with that, Rachel? Work-wise, I'm working from home all day today, so it's no problem." After dropping Claire off at kindergarten, I headed straight to Sebastian's office. Being a large company, the reception area was wide and impressive. The atmosphere was different. Everything was so polished, and the employees walking by looked sharp. "Is this where Sebastian works?" Feeling a bit nervous, I approached the receptionist. Excuse me, I'm Sebastian Clark's wife. I'm here to drop off something he forgot." The receptionist smiled warmly at me. "I'll check on that. Please wait a moment." The woman had impeccable makeup and was quite beautiful, with a smile that made her look surprisingly cute. She could easily be mistaken for a model or an actress. Even the way she made the phone call was graceful. As I watched, entranced, I suddenly heard a familiar voice behind me. "Wait, is that you, Rachel?" I turned around to see my friend, Nicole. "Nicole. Wait, what? You work here now?" "Yeah, I recently switched jobs. Long time no see. I was so busy, I didn't even have time to tell you." I could say the same. I've been so busy that it's been hard to find time to meet. Well, I guess we're both in the same boat. But still, running into you here. Nicole laughed heartily. We'd been friends since high school. Nicole had always been dedicated to her career, working tirelessly in her field. I didn't know she was looking for a new job, but maybe it was fate that we ran into each other here. Apparently, Nicole thought the same thing. "Hey, do you have some time later this afternoon? I'd like to talk." "Oh, yeah. I'm free." "Great. I'll send you the location later." As I was talking with Nicole, Sebastian came jogging over. "Oh, Sebastian, here." "Thanks, Rachel. You're a lifesaver." Sebastian grabbed the envelope from my hand like he couldn't wait another second. "Rachel, you've got work too, right? Head on home. Be safe." "Oh, okay." And with just that, he disappeared back into the office. It was the first decent conversation we'd had in a while, but it ended so abruptly. While I stood there a bit dumbfounded, Nicole tapped me on the shoulder. "I'll text you, so keep an eye on your smartphone." "All right, I'm heading back to work too." "Yay. See you later." I watched Nicole walk back to work and left the office myself. I headed home, did some work, and in the afternoon went to the cafe where we had agreed to meet. And the first thing Nicole said was, "How should I say this? Sebastian's cheating." "What?" I let out a dumbfounded sound at her abrupt statement. "Cheating? Who?" "My husband, Sebastian." "Why? Why would Nicole say something like that?" A million questions popped into my mind. What do you mean?" I asked cautiously, and Nicole started speaking with conviction. "Well, actually, I saw Sebastian with another woman. Just being together doesn't mean they're cheating. It's not just that. I think others have seen them too." Honestly, it didn't even seem like they were trying to hide it. What Nicole shared was pretty shocking. She described what she had seen between Sebastian and the woman interactions that clearly looked like cheating. With each detail Nicole gave, my arguments lost more steam. And you know the woman. She's our receptionist. You saw her today, didn't you? What, her? The image of the gorgeous woman at the reception desk flashed in my mind. Is she and Sebastian cheating? Carrot they, I don't know. Mismatched. That was what slipped out of my mouth. Maybe it wasn't the right thing to say about my husband, but Sebastian wasn't exactly a stunning type, pretty average, actually. Plus, they had to be at least 10 years apart in age. With her looks, she could probably have her pick, so I didn't get why she'd go for someone married like Sebastian. As I continued, Nicole shook her head firmly. Rachel, you don't get it. There are plenty of people who find it thrilling to mess with what belongs to someone else. Is that a thing? Oh, it's very much a thing. She's a classic example of that type. Didn't you notice anything off about Sebastian? Any signs he was acting strange or behaving differently? No, I don't think so. Sure, he's been busier with work lately, so we haven't had much time together. As I said that, Nicole frowned. What? Busy with work? Sebastian. Yeah. He's been working overtime a lot, and even going in on weekends, sometimes coming home well after midnight. That's probably a lie. What? Nicole's words left me stunned once again, because Sebastian was transferred to a department last year where no one gets promoted. So there's no overtime, no weekend work either. A transfer. This was also news to me. The revelation was overwhelming. My head was spinning. Yeah, Sebastian used to be the top performer in his team, but he made a huge mistake on his last project, made the client furious, and it almost turned into a lawsuit. He was demoted and transferred to another team as a result. It's actually common knowledge at work. I can't believe you didn't know, Rachel. What? I hadn't heard any of this before. I was speechless. It felt like I didn't know anything about Sebastian at all. Then it suddenly hit me. I barely knew anything about Sebastian at all. Or maybe I just didn't want to know. No, that excuse about work is just a lie. He's probably crashing at his girlfriend's place. Nicole's tone was calm, but I could tell she was being stern for my sake, to make me face reality. So, he's cheating. The words escaped my mouth, and with them, a wave of darkness washed over me. Of course, I wondered why, and I couldn't shake the thought that maybe I had somehow failed as a wife. All right, I'll look into it. I'll start paying closer attention to Sebastian. Okay, I'll keep an eye out at work too. If I can get any photos, I'll send them to you. Thank you. I'm sorry we had to talk about this, especially after not seeing each other for so long. I could have just texted you, but I thought it would be better to discuss it face to face. No, it's okay. I know you're just looking out for me. Thanks, Nicole. We chatted for a while longer, and then we parted ways. I went to pick up Claire from daycare, and we headed home together. Mom, why do you look so sad? Did something happen? What? No, I'm okay, really. Nothing's wrong, sweetie. I forced a smile at Claire. Did I manage to look convincing? That night, once again, Sebastian didn't come home. After putting Claire to bed, I decided to search Sebastian's room. It served as both his office and his bedroom, though I hadn't seen him sleep there in ages. A thin layer of dust had settled on his desk. Doing my best to remain calm, I began my search. And then, shockingly, I found evidence of his affair almost immediately. In the back of a drawer, I found photo after photo. The woman in the pictures looked exactly like the receptionist Nicole had described. One photo even seemed to be taken at an amusement park where he had once promised to take Claire. He'd left his family behind to have fun with her at the park. Seeing this, the last sliver of hope I had for Sebastian vanished completely. I would never forgive him. I was resolved. From that moment, I became relentless in gathering evidence of his affair. I even hired a detective agency. Nicole was true to her word as well, keeping an eye on things at work, and soon she sent over additional proof. A photo of Sebastian with a receptionist, Marissa, showed them standing close, looking more like lovers than colleagues. Nicole was sharp, probably even sharper than most private investigators. That receptionist, her name's Marissa White, and apparently, she's been seeing several other guys besides Sebastian. And get this, each one of them thinks he's her only boyfriend. Dating multiple guys from the same company. Does she even come here for work? Nicole's message practically screamed with anger. I thanked Nicole and saved the photo. The results from the detective agency confirmed Sebastian's infidelity beyond any doubt. Whenever I crossed paths with Sebastian at home, I paid careful attention to his behavior. I noticed that his frequent complaints about being exhausted were nothing but a cover. For someone who claimed to be so tired, his face didn't show any sign of fatigue. If anything, he seemed oddly refreshed. His shirt was neatly ironed, and there was a faint smell of fabric softener that wasn't from our home. Maybe he was so convinced I'd never catch on, or maybe he'd always been like this, and I was just too oblivious to notice. It didn't matter. My only focus now was gathering evidence of his affairs. At this point, I felt nothing. Any love I had was long gone. And now I was coolly calculating how best to make him pay. And as it turned out, cheating wasn't his only offense. One day, my mother-in-law, Susan, called me, and what she revealed left me speechless. Rachel, I'm really sorry, but we can't help financially anymore. We're on a fixed income, and things have been tight. We wanted to help, but it's becoming difficult. Sorry, Susan. What are you talking about? Well, I'm referring to the private school fees for Claire. What? Something isn't adding up here. Claire is going to a private school, isn't she? Sebastian asked us to help with the tuition and living costs about a year ago. Private school fees are not cheap, you know. And he also said you lost your job recently and haven't had much luck with finding something else. So you've been struggling a lot. What? No, Claire isn't in a private school, nor do we have any plans to send her to one. And I didn't lose my job either. Work is going quite well, actually. I have no idea what you're talking about. And Sebastian never mentioned anything about asking for money. What on earth has he been thinking? Wait, what? I'm confused too. That's when it hit me. This was all Sebastian's doing. Susan, actually. I went on to explain everything. When I told her about Sebastian's infidelity, she sounded utterly shocked. I felt my anger boiling up all over again. Using Claire as an excuse to scam money from his parents was beyond disgusting. I asked my in-laws to act like they didn't know anything until I was ready to take action. I kept preparing, and finally, the day arrived. It was a Saturday. Sebastian, as usual, had planned a work day with his so-called client. All right, I'm off to work now. He said it so nonchalantly, walking towards the front door, as if nothing was out of the ordinary. But right before that, I turned on the recording feature on my smartphone. Sebastian, wait a second. What is it? Oh, did I forget something? No, you're cheating, aren't you? I cut straight to the chase. What? Sebastian looked back at me, a confused expression plastered on his face. I pressed on, unfazed. Yes, cheating. With that woman at your office's front desk. Marissa White. What? What are you talking about out of nowhere? Saying weird stuff like this first thing in the morning. I'm about to leave for work. If you want to talk, I'll listen when I get home. Okay. Now can I go? Work? Don't make me laugh. You're not heading to your office. Want me to guess the address of where you're actually going? Sebastian, desperate to get away, was trying to evade. He probably thought he could talk his way out of anything with me, but there was no way I'd let him escape. When I recited the address of his mistress, Sebastian's eyes widened in shock. How do you know Marissa's address? Did you investigate me? Oh, I didn't say it was Marissa's address, did I? Well, she works at the same company, so of course I'd know her address. We send each other Christmas cards. You know, it was a weak excuse. I looked at him with half-lidded eyes, unable to bear my gaze. He looked away. Look, I've got all the proof I need, so it'd be best for you to just come clean, don't you think? Proof? What proof? Yes, proof. I dumped the contents of the envelope I'd been holding onto the floor. Out fell a pile of photographs with loud, incriminating evidence. Clear photos of Sebastian with his mistress, caught red-handed. Whoa. Sebastian raised his voice, trying to distract, but the photos just kept scattering around. He crouched, scrambling to gather them up off the floor. Oh, those are copies, by the way. Don't worry, there's plenty more. Don't worry. You. What the hell is this? What's going on? What do you want from me? What do I want? My eyes widened. Are you serious? You think you can ask me that? You're cheating on me and Claire. What were you thinking? How could you do something so low? Well, I mean, you left pictures of you two in our room like trophies. Were all those times you said you were busy with work just lies? Every single one, just to meet up with her. All those dates, those trips, I know you went on together. My voice rose, nearly yelling as I said it, and Sebastian flinched. It's been a long time since I've raised my voice like that. I glared at Sebastian as he looked back at me, scrambling for another excuse, then took a sharp breath and looked up at the ceiling. Oh, fine. Yes, I cheated. So what? Got a problem with that? He's clearly decided to just own it, without even a hint of remorse. Problem? Of course, I have a problem with that. I have one with you too. The reason I cheated is because of you. What? You haven't been fulfilling your role as my wife. I had to look elsewhere for someone who could. I expect my wife to be waiting for me when I come home exhausted from work, to serve me a warm, freshly made meal every night, to keep a perfectly made, comfortable bed ready. That's all a wife's job, and you've neglected it. I tried to put up with it, but you didn't change. So really, it's your fault I cheated. I'm not the one at fault here. Sebastian's accusations left me stunned. After a pause, a chill of realization hits me. What is this? Is this what he actually believes marriage should be like? How did it get to this point? This is downright revolting. Hold on, you used to say you didn't want me waiting up late for you, that it made you feel pressured. So I took care of myself and didn't wait up for you. For the love of. That was just a way of testing you, to see if you had any sense as my wife. Anyone would still be waiting up after that. Read between the lines, will you? At this point, it's all just baseless blame shifting. How did I even end up married to this man, going along with this mess of a relationship for so long? I feel nothing but exasperation. With a sigh, I look at Sebastian, who's glaring at me. Fine, I'm done, too. I don't want to keep up a family with a wife who won't fulfill her duties. Divorce me right now. I'm going to marry her instead. Sebastian sneers at me as he says this. Oh, but maybe you can't even make it on your own. You're just a burden to your work from home job, after all. A burden. What in the world is he talking about? No, I'll be just fine on my own. Actually, are you sure you'll be okay? What? Trying to put on a brave face. He still looks at me with that condescending smirk, confident he's won this battle. Did he even consider that just because he wants to remarry, she might not be feeling the same way? Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if she left him high and dry instead. But at this point, it's pointless to argue with him. Sure, keep trying to act tough. Don't worry, I'll pay whatever settlement you demand in court. Consider it my last act of mercy. Oh, thank you. I take out the divorce papers I had prepared and hold them out to Sebastian. Without hesitation, he signs them and shoves them back at me. You can take Claire. I don't need her messing up my new life. I wasn't planning on leaving her with you. From the beginning, there was no chance I'd leave my precious daughter with this man. I will have full custody. All right, I'll send over the paperwork for alimony and child support later. I've already handled the house arrangements, so no need to worry. Claire. I tuck the divorce papers away as I call up toward the second floor. Claire comes out of her room. On her back, she carried a small backpack. Mom, are you done talking? All done. Shall we go? Okay, Claire answered cheerfully. I picked up the suitcase and backpack I had prepared earlier. What's going on? Sebastian stammered, visibly stunned by my level of preparation. But I had been ready for this moment for quite some time, ever since I began seriously considering divorce. Everything was packed well in advance, and I had already arranged a new place for us. All right, Claire, say goodbye to Dad. Bye-bye, Dad. Claire waved her hand with a cheerful smile. Sebastian watched with a dumbfounded look on his face. It was a surprisingly simple farewell between father and daughter, and we quickly got into the car and drove away. I knew all too well how things would end for Sebastian. On the way, I stopped by the city hall and filed the divorce papers. Now we were officially strangers. Our new apartment was fully furnished and ready to be lived in. Over time, I had quietly moved our belongings, but Sebastian, who was hardly ever home, didn't seem to notice. Claire was excitedly exploring our new place. I watched her with a smile as I began unpacking. Then, the next day, as expected, Sebastian's frantic calls started pouring in. After dozens of missed calls, I finally picked up. Yes, hello. Oh, finally. Hey, what the hell is going on? Excuse me. What's this about? I'm talking about the house. I just got kicked out. They're saying it's being torn down today. I was kicked out this morning, and before I knew it, the rest of the furniture was being moved out. Now there are construction trucks all over the place. What is this? None of this makes any sense. And why are you calling me about it? I asked, feigning innocence. Well, who else would I call? You were the only one talking about the house yesterday. Only you could pull something like this. How dare you tear down my house? I'm going to sue you. I'm not sure what you're talking about. That house is mine. As I said this, I could sense Sebastian's stunned silence on the other end of the line. Yes, that house is mine. Did you forget? It was a wedding gift from my parents. The deed is in my name, and it's my property. So what I choose to do with it is entirely my decision. I could feel the shock coming from him. Did he really think that house was his? Perhaps he assumed so simply because it had been a wedding gift, believing that as the head of the household, it would naturally be his. I decided to tear down the house and sell the land. My parents gave me the freedom to do as I wished. Even so, you could have at least told me. How could you keep something like this from me? Now I don't even have a house. That's funny. Why would I need to consult a stranger like you? Besides, you're the one who was sneaking around behind my back. I don't think you're in any position to lecture me. After I finished speaking, Sebastian muttered a feeble excuse. But I already told her. I told her I'd separated from my wife, and we'd get married, and that she could come live with me. But now there's no house. How could you do this to me? Take responsibility. You only ever think about yourself, don't you? I sighed. Why don't you just rent a place? I mean, you're supposed to be some kind of elite, right? You should have the money to rent a big, spacious, luxurious house that would make her happy. Sebastian hesitated. He still thinks I don't know he got demoted. He also thinks I haven't found out that he's been asking his parents for money under the pretense of helping Claire. But I've known all along. Is it his pride that keeps him pretending he has money? It's ridiculous, and I can't understand it, so I decided to shatter that pride for him. Oh, and remember, even if you're without a house, don't forget to keep up with the alimony and child support payments after the divorce. About that. Can we rethink things? I mean, let's just say we both made mistakes this time, and call it even or something. I raised my voice on purpose. I could tell, even over the phone, that Sebastian was startled. What are you talking about? You said, name the price. I'll pay it, like it was nothing. Was that a lie? That was. I was just in the moment. I have his words from that time recorded. I could replay them right now if I wanted to. Aren't you supposed to be an elite? And isn't your salary supposed to be good? So why can't you pay? Maybe you don't have that much money after all. I have it. It's just, with everything happening right now, I'm going to need cash for a while, so then just take out a loan or whatever to pay it. Or maybe you could borrow from Susan again. Although I doubt they'll lend you anything now. What? How do you know about that? Sebastian's reaction was obvious. I know you've been asking your parents for money, using Claire as an excuse. I could hear him gasp. So your salary went down, and you've been asking your parents to cover the gap, using Claire as the reason. That's truly low. You knew. And you've been bad-mouthing me too. You even told them to keep it from me, because I'd definitely be angry if I found out. Until I got a call from Susan, I had no idea. You want to look so big in front of everyone. I just don't get it. As I spoke in a sharp, casual tone, Sebastian stopped arguing. Well, your salary might be lower now, but you still get it, don't you? So you can pay the alimony and child support from that, can't you? That's all. From now on, contact me through my lawyer. Goodbye. Wait, can't we try again? The two of us. What on earth is he going to say this time? It was just a little misunderstanding. I'm sorry, okay. I apologize for cheating. So why don't we try again? Let's get back together. I'll make things right. I'll work hard to get back into a department where I can move up, and I'll stop seeing Marissa. Look, it's better for Claire to have her dad around, right? She'll be starting elementary school next year. You're not exactly making a huge income, and it's obvious you'll have a hard time. If she doesn't have her dad, she might feel out of place at school, so, no, it's impossible. There's no way we're trying again. And in case you're misunderstanding, I'm probably earning as much as you did back when you were rising in your career. What? Don't look down on me just because I work from home. I'm fully qualified and work in a specialized field that isn't easily replaceable. So you don't need to worry about me. Then you especially don't need compensation or child support from the divorce case. Drop it already. No, absolutely not. The divorce compensation is my right, and child support is Claire's right as our child. You will pay it, so just get ready for it. Goodbye, and this time, I mean it. Wait, please. Ignoring Sebastian, who was trying to say something, I hung up the phone. Then I blocked his number. Having finally said everything I needed to, I felt relieved. Oh right. I need to thank and update Nicole too. I sent a message to Nicole. She read it immediately and invited me to meet up at the same cafe we went to last time. I smiled and typed back, "Okay." After that, I officially requested Sebastian to pay the divorce compensation and child support in writing. With a lawyer involved, I made sure he promised to make the payments. Sebastian, having lost his home, tried to turn to his mistress, but she refused him. No wonder. I had also requested compensation from her due to the divorce. After I sent a certified letter to her parents' home, her parents read it, got furious, and even went to his office, creating a bit of a scene. As I heard from Nicole, apparently the mistress couldn't take it anymore, quit her job, and returned to her parents' house. As it turned out, her parents took over the divorce compensation and paid it all at once. The uproar at his workplace led to rumors about Sebastian, but he couldn't quit, having to keep working to pay for the divorce compensation and child support. As for housing, he seems to have ended up moving into an old company dorm. I also heard that his former parents-in-law disowned him. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that things look bleak for Sebastian now. As for me, as long as he properly pays the divorce compensation and child support, I really don't care about the rest. I'm enjoying life with Claire. Work is going well, and I've been entrusted with a new project. Spending time with Nicole going around cafes has been a nice break too. From now on, I just want to protect this ordinary, peaceful life.
We're getting engaged, the young woman declares happily across the counter, her eyes sparkling with joy and excitement. This is a high-end jewelry store that specializes in precious stones and breathtaking designs. I work here as a sales associate, helping customers find the perfect piece to symbolize their love and commitment. And the man standing next to the woman who just announced their engagement is none other than my husband, Mick. When we first met, I was instantly drawn to Mick's bright smile and reliable demeanor. He had a way of making me feel safe and cherished, and I knew I wanted to spend the rest of my life with him. But about 6 months into our marriage, things started to change. Mick began taking more business trips and working late nights at the office. I tried to be understanding, telling myself that he was just working hard to provide for our future. But deep down, I couldn't shake the feeling that something wasn't right. And then, on this fateful day, my worst fears were confirmed. Mick walked into the very store where I was filling in for a colleague, arm in arm with a young woman I had never seen before. Even though it was just a coincidence, seeing Mick with another woman felt like a punch to the gut. My vision blurred and my heart raced as I tried to process what was happening. An engagement ring? What did this mean? In an instant, all the trust and love I had for Mick, all the happy memories we had shared, they all shattered into a million pieces right before my eyes. I'm so adored by him. The young woman, who I later learned was named Amos, gushed to me, completely oblivious to the fact that I was Mick's wife. He calls me multiple times a day, always picks me up and drops me off when we go out, and buys me anything I say I like. I'm so loved. I feel like the luckiest girl in the world. As Amos went on and on about how wonderful Mick was, I couldn't help but think about all the times I had wondered why our savings weren't growing as fast as they should have been, given Mick's salary. Now I knew the answer. He had been lavishing his mistress with gifts and attention, all while neglecting his own wife. Mick, meanwhile, had finally noticed my presence and was shifting uncomfortably from foot to foot, his face twisted into a guilty grimace. Fighting back the urge to scream or cry or both, I somehow managed to plaster on my best customer service smile and speak in an overly cheerful voice. Is that so? Congratulations! If you're looking for a diamond engagement ring, we have some stunning new designs in this display case over here. Then, I turned to look directly at Mick, my gaze unwavering as I continued. "And for you, sir, I have a special recommendation." When Mick saw what I was holding out to him, the color drained from his face, and his mouth began to tremble. I felt a bitter laugh bubbling up inside me, so different from the fake smile I had been forcing. Because what I had thrust in front of Mick's face was a divorce certificate application, already signed by yours truly. "Just add your signature here, and our divorce will be finalized. Feel free to go and be happy with your little side piece." My name is Lena, and I'm a 29-year-old woman working at a well-known jewelry store. The store where I work carries a wide variety of accessories, and the interior is always clean, bright, and glittering with promise. Customers come in searching for the perfect piece adorned with rubies, sapphires, pearls, opals, and more, each one hoping to find something that will make them feel special and loved. Whether they're shopping for an anniversary gift or a little treat for themselves, everyone's face lights up when they see our beautiful selection. But the one thing that outshines everything else in the store? The diamonds, of course. Delicately cut and set into stunning rings, they sparkle and shine from their prime location in the center of the showroom, drawing every eye with their timeless beauty and elegance. And of course, most of the customers who come in to buy these stunning pieces are couples in love or newlyweds, their eyes shining with anticipation and joy. Watching these happy duos choose their perfect symbol of commitment, make their purchase, and walk out hand in hand, their faces glowing with excitement, it's impossible not to feel a swell of vicarious happiness. Selling sparkle and bliss, that's what this job is all about. And I take great pride in what I do. As for my own love life, well, I've always been so captivated by the allure of working in a jewelry store that romance has taken a bit of a back seat. Day after day, I'd watch the lovers and spouses who came into the shop, feeling pangs of longing. But the more I threw myself into my work, the less time I seemed to have for putting myself out there and finding my own special someone. My friend Vanessa, noticing my perpetually single status, decided to take matters into her own hands and set me up with a guy she knew. That guy turned out to be Mick, my future husband. Mick was 6 years older than me and worked in the sales department of an electronics company. I was immediately drawn to his outgoing nature, his way with words, and his perpetually sunny disposition. But he also had a serious side, really listening intently when it came to important matters. After just a few dates, I knew with absolute certainty that if I were to marry anyone, it would be him. I made the first move and confessed my feelings, and we started officially dating. About 6 months into our relationship, I brought up the topic of marriage. These days, there's no shame in a woman taking the lead when it comes to tying the knot. I confidently and assertively moved our marriage talks forward. At first, Mick said it was too soon. But as I passionately made my case for why getting married and starting a family sooner rather than later was the way to go, he came around to the idea. It probably helped that a lot of people in Mick's circle were getting hitched around that time too. Hearing everyone's stories made me realize I needed to really think seriously about marriage myself. And when I think about our future children, getting married to you now just makes the most sense, he told me. From there, things progressed smoothly, meeting each other's families, making preparations. I had lost my mother to illness when I was too young to remember her, and had been raised by a single father. So when I brought home my husband-to-be, my dad Danny was so overjoyed that he cried until his eyes were red and puffy. "Lena, you've been through so much, growing up without a mother. I was happy enough just seeing you land your dream job and work so hard, but now you've found yourself such a wonderful husband too. I'm so glad I was able to raise you to this point," he said, choking up. Mick and I comforted Danny together, vowing silently to give him even more peace of mind from here on out. Mick's parents were lovely people too, and I hit it off with them right away. My mother-in-law Juliet was so moved by the fact that I worked in a jewelry store. She asked me all about my job and the gems we sold, and I was more than happy to chat with her about it all. The conversation flowed effortlessly. Juliet listened with such empathy as I opened up about my upbringing too.
I think I've gotten the hang of most household tasks, but it's probably just the bare minimum for my dad and I to get by. I'm a bit nervous that there might be a lot I'm lacking when it comes to supporting Mick.
I confessed. Juliet just laughed.
You've worked so hard to get to where you are. That's more than enough. And if there's ever anything you're unsure about, just ask me,
she said. Throughout our engagement and into our married life, Juliet was always there for me, patiently teaching me the ins and outs of managing a household. When it came to cooking especially, I learned so much from her. How to make a flavorful broth, the best ways to store ingredients, the secrets to a hearty, comforting stew, tips for bringing out the savory goodness in a roasted turkey. And never once did Juliet look down on me or make me feel foolish for the things I didn't know. She always explained everything with such kindness and care. Before I knew it, I had grown to adore her, to trust her like the mother I'd never had. Mick's job in sales kept him busy, but he had a strict policy of not bringing work home. He never did overtime from the house or went out with colleagues on his days off. Thanks to that, whenever Mick was home, he was able to devote his time and attention fully to me. Even after we got married, Mick and I remained as close as ever, chatting and laughing over meals, going on weekend drives and movie dates. He never once complained about my struggles with household chores. In fact, he would even praise the dishes I made while practicing Juliet's recipes. Of course, there were times when things got hectic at work and he'd have to stay late at the office or go on overnight business trips. But having watched my dad work tirelessly to raise me on his own, I actually found Mick's dedication to his job rather reassuring. As much as I missed him, I was more than happy to cheer him on. I had continued working after we married too, and there was something deeply fulfilling about being a couple who both took pride in our careers. It wasn't until about 6 months into our marriage that I started to feel the first stirrings of unease. Mick's job was as demanding as ever, but gradually, his business trips and late nights began to increase in frequency. It used to be that he'd only have to put in extra hours around the end of the month, and overnight trips were limited to once or twice in that same time frame. But now, regardless of the time of month, he was coming home late more often than not, and his travel seemed to have doubled. Thinking there must be some reason for the uptick in his busyness, I asked Mick about it casually, not wanting to read into things.
There's a chance I might be up for a promotion soon. And if I want to make that happen, I need to be delivering bigger results than ever before. Now's the time to really buckle down and prove myself,
he explained. It was a story I'd heard plenty of times before, putting in the extra effort at work when a raise or promotion was on the line. And as his wife, of course I was thrilled at the prospect of Mick advancing in his career. I told him as much, assuring him I completely understood and that I'd be rooting for him to clinch that promotion. I even mentioned it to Juliet during one of our regular phone chats. Her response gave me a moment's pause. That boy, for better or worse, isn't really the type to push himself too hard at work, she mused, sounding a bit perplexed. In the end, we both agreed that hopefully things would settle down for him sooner rather than later, and left it at that. But as the next month rolled around with no word of a promotion, I started to worry. I didn't want to nag Mick or make him feel like I was pressuring him about moving up in the company. I was working too, after all, and the last thing I wanted was to come across as some kind of money-grubbing leech. But by that point, Mick was spending nearly every week away from home, and even on the weekdays he was back, he was consistently getting in well past midnight. It felt like he'd all but stopped making time for our marriage. Needless to say, the baby we'd been planning for had yet to make an appearance. We could barely even find a moment to be together as husband and wife, let alone start a family.
Is this busy period at work going to last much longer? I'm worried all this overtime might take a toll on your health,
I ventured, trying to keep my tone light and casual. Mick barely glanced up from his phone, his fingers tapping away at the screen as he replied distractedly.
Yeah, it's probably going to be like this for a while. Our department's been told to really step it up, so we don't get left in the dust by the others.
I watched him, waiting for more, but he just kept his eyes glued to that damn device. After a few minutes, he finally pocketed it and turned to me, his voice brusque and businesslike, as if our earlier conversation had never happened.
By the way, I've got another business trip next week. I'll be gone, so just do whatever. Wait, another trip? Which days? I asked, trying to mask the sinking feeling in my gut. Thursday through Saturday, 3 days. Don't worry about the house or anything. Anyway, see ya.
And with that, Mick turned his back on me and walked out of the room, leaving me alone with my swirling thoughts. It was true that even when work got hectic, Mick never really complained or expressed dissatisfaction about our home life. There was a stretch when I was so swamped at the store that I let the cleaning slide, but he didn't say a word about it. I used to think that was a sign of his kindness, his understanding. But now, I could see it for what it really was. Not love or compassion, but pure, simple neglect. Did I even matter to Mick at all anymore? How had we gotten to this point? And then there was the thing I hadn't managed to tell him before he walked away. My job required the occasional business trip too, rare as they were. The store I worked for was a nationwide chain, which meant that sometimes I had to fill in at other locations when they were short-staffed. Usually, it was just the shops in our immediate area trading employees back and forth. But this time, they were in such a bind that I was being sent to a store nearly 2 hours away by car. And as luck would have it, my trip coincided exactly with the dates of Mick's upcoming travel. Given how little he seemed to care about our household these days, I doubted he'd have any objections to me being gone and unable to take care of things. But more than that, there was something about this particular set of trips that left me feeling uneasy. I picked up my phone and fired off a quick message to a certain someone. Their reply came through almost immediately, so I decided to follow up with a call. Then, the next week arrived. I saw Mick off as he left for his alleged business trip, and then promptly set out on my own journey. After a long couple of hours on the road, I was already tired by the time I pulled into the parking lot of my destination store. But work beckoned, so I steeled myself and headed inside. As soon as I entered, a woman caught my eye and waved me over. I waved back, a genuine smile breaking through my exhaustion as I hurried to join her. She worked at this particular branch. We'd actually started at the company around the same time and had gone through training together. Her name was Vanessa. When I found out I'd be traveling here, I'd reached out to see if we might be on the same shift. And on the very day Mick had informed me of his own upcoming trip, it was Vanessa I'd called up to discuss a hunch that had been nagging at the back of my mind. Vanessa wasn't just a colleague, she was a true confidant, the kind of irreplaceable best friend you could turn to for advice and heart-to-hearts about anything and everything.
Thank you so much for making the trip out here,
she said, her warm smile radiating genuine affection. Of course. I'm so happy we get to work together. Here's to the next 3 days. I grinned back, feeling a surge of gratitude for her steadfast presence in my life. With our little reunion complete, we both set about tackling our respective tasks for the day. Since we worked for the same brand, the day-to-day operations were pretty much identical from store to store. Whenever I hit a snag or had a question, Vanessa was right there to guide me through it, and I soon found myself settling into a comfortable rhythm. It was early afternoon when it happened. I was holed up in the employee lounge, plugging away at some paperwork, when I heard the electronic chime that signaled a new customer had entered the store. Out on the sales floor, I could hear Vanessa's muffled voice as she greeted the newcomer with a polite,
"Welcome to our store, sir. How may I assist you today?"
Call it force of habit, but I found myself rising from my chair and edging closer to the door, curious to catch a glimpse of our latest patron. As I peered out from my hidden vantage point, I felt the blood drain from my face, my breath catching in my throat. Because there, standing mere feet away from my unsuspecting best friend, was none other than my very own husband, Mick. What in the world was he doing here? It was the middle of the day, shouldn't he be at work? No. It couldn't be. There was no way his business trip just happened to coincide with my own in both timing and destination. And yet, the proof was right there in front of me, clear as day. The man standing in the middle of that showroom, looking entirely too casual and carefree to be on the clock, was undoubtedly my spouse. But if he wasn't here for work, then what exactly was he up to? I was just about to step out and confront him directly when the chime sounded again, heralding the arrival of another customer. A young woman, probably in her early 20s at most, came bounding into the store with a giddy smile, making a beeline straight for Mick.
Hey, no fair going in without me.
The young woman, oblivious to Mick's frozen state, looped her arm through his, pressing herself against him with a familiarity that made my stomach churn. She chattered away, her words lost to me as I stood there, rooted to the spot, my mind reeling. What the hell was happening right now? Who was this girl, this brazen hussy, clinging to my husband like she owned him? Vanessa, my best friend, the one who had been there on my wedding day. There was no way she didn't recognize the man who had just walked into our store. The man who was supposed to be my loving, faithful partner. As if sensing my turmoil, Vanessa glanced back towards the employee lounge where I stood hidden, her eyes meeting mine with a look of profound understanding and sympathy. She gave me a subtle nod, a silent promise that she had my back, no matter what. I nodded in return, my heart hammering against my ribs as I braced myself for whatever fresh hell was about to unfold. Without missing a beat, Vanessa turned back to the oblivious couple, her customer service smile firmly in place as she addressed them in a voice that was just a touch too bright to be entirely natural.
Is there anything specific I can help you find today?
I pressed myself against the wall, straining to hear every word of the impending interaction, my breath coming in shallow gasps as I fought to maintain my composure. We're looking for a diamond ring. The girl's high-pitched voice rang out, setting my teeth on edge with its grating sweetness.
Of course. We have some stunning new designs in this display case over here. Or if you prefer something more classic and understated, these styles are always very popular with our customers.
Vanessa's tone was polite but distant as she walked them through their options, ever the consummate professional.
Is this for a special occasion?
She asked, her words carefully neutral. And then, the answer that shattered my world into a million jagged pieces. Yes, it's for our engagement. We're looking for the perfect ring to symbolize our love. In that moment, it felt like all the air had been sucked out of the room, leaving me gasping and dizzy. I staggered back, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle the sob that threatened to tear itself from my throat. What did she just say? An engagement ring? But the man standing next to her, the man she was looking to pledge her life to, that was M.Y. Mick. My husband. The jewelry shop is a place that delivers happiness to customers along with the brilliance of gemstones. And yet, in such a place of happiness, my happiness was shattered. My heart starts racing. Though my head feels like it's burning hot, my heart is growing increasingly cold, as if it's freezing. With trembling hands, I reach out across the office table. There, something was placed.
Oh my, are you two getting engaged?
Yes. As soon as possible, right, honey? The woman's voice rang out, seeking Mick's agreement. But no response came from him. I struggled to breathe, my chest tight with pain. Steeling myself, I straightened my spine and stepped back out onto the sales floor.
Welcome. I see you're looking for a diamond ring,
I said, putting on my brightest smile as I approached the couple. Mick's eyes widened in shock at my sudden appearance, his face turning a sickly shade of pale as he began to tremble. That's right. The latest designs are so cute, but something classic might be better for long-term wear. It's a tough choice. His mistress chattered away, her smile blissfully unaware that she was face to face with the wife of the man beside her.
I understand. It's an important decision, So please take your time and consider carefully. We have some catalogs here for you to browse as well.
I handed them a selection of jewelry catalogs, my customer service mask firmly in place. Then, I turned to Mick.
And for you, sir, I have a special recommendation.
The moment he saw what I was holding out to him, Mick's eyes bulged even further, his unfocused gaze darting nervously to my face. I met his panicked stare head-on, my practiced smile unwavering. Because what I had handed my husband was a divorce application, already signed by yours truly. A while back, when Mick's overtime and business trips first started to increase, I had reached out to Juliet with my concerns. Not long after, Juliet happened to be grabbing a bite near Mick's office when she spotted him slipping off into the night with a young woman on his arm. Of course, she immediately reported back to me.
It was a busy restaurant, so he might not have noticed me there. But because you had just mentioned your worries about him, I guess I was unconsciously on the lookout. That's the only reason I managed to catch him in the act.
So Mick's affair had been blown wide open, at least to Juliet and myself. On top of that, as his promises of a promotion grew more and more vague while his absences from home only increased, I had hired a private investigator to look into his activities. Juliet's testimony was credible, but at the time, we didn't have concrete proof that Mick and this mystery woman were actually involved in anything untoward. The results of the PI's investigation came to light sooner than I expected. Probably because Mick's cheating was so blatant, so shameless, that it only took a professional a few days to uncover the truth. Nearly every day, Mick could be seen whining and dining with his mistress in the bustling entertainment district near his office, before sneaking off to a hotel. And at least once a week, they would spend the entire night together. Within 2 weeks, I had a stack of damning photographs. His partner in infidelity was a woman named Amos. The same Amos who was currently simpering at my sales counter, picking out an engagement ring with my husband. And at the very same time I had hired the PI, I was also confiding in Vanessa, my coworker who was out on the floor with the duplicitous couple at this very moment. I so badly wanted to believe in Mick, the man I loved with all my heart. Vanessa had initially been supportive of that desire, doing her best to soothe my worries. But everything changed when the results from the private investigator came in. I sobbed into the phone, shocked to my core, as Vanessa tried to comfort me even as she made no attempt to hide her fury towards Mick.
Cheating on you with some mistress, that's the lowest of the low. And barely coming home anymore? It's like he doesn't care about you at all, Lena. I can't stand seeing you suffer like this.
Thank you, Ness. Hey, in a situation like this, do you think it's better to just get a divorce?
My heart felt like it was being ripped in two as I posed the question. Vanessa was silent for a moment before replying slowly.
It's your life, your decision. I don't want to push you into anything. But if you're asking for my honest opinion, I think you should leave him, Lena. You're a gorgeous, talented, and amazing woman. You could find someone so much better in a heartbeat.
You really think so?
Thank you for listening, and for being there for me.
Vanessa had reassured me then that we would get together soon for a long heart-to-heart. And as luck would have it, not long after, I was assigned to help out at her store for a few days. Since Mick never told me where his supposed business trips were taking him, running into him here had been a complete coincidence. But it seemed my best friend had been looking out for me, because somehow, she had gotten her hands on divorce papers. During our lunch break, Vanessa had handed me the documents with an apologetic smile.
I'm so sorry for jumping the gun like this. I know getting divorced is a huge, scary step. It has to be your choice, Lena. I just wanted you to have these, in case you ever felt ready to use them.
Even after learning of Mick's infidelity, I hadn't been able to bring myself to initiate a divorce. I had married him with such dreams of a perfect future together. Vanessa must have sensed my hesitation and taken it upon herself to get the paperwork in order, giving me the power to make the final call. I never would have guessed I'd be using those papers so soon. But seeing Mick with Amos, watching their betrayal play out right in front of me, it had crystallized my resolve. So while Vanessa kept the duplicitous pair distracted, I had hastily scrawled my signature on the divorce application and strode out to confront my cheating husband head-on.
What the hell is this?
Mick stammered, his face draining of color as he began to tremble. He was wearing a suit I had picked out for him, his hair styled to perfection. All for Amos. The sight of it made my skin crawl with revulsion. But I kept my customer service smile firmly in place as I addressed him.
Is there something about this particular item that interests you, sir? I'd be more than happy to discuss the details with you in private. Right this way, please.
And with that, I ushered Mick and Amos into the back office. Mick was visibly uneasy, his head bowed and his steps heavy as he followed me. Amos, on the other hand, seemed blissfully unaware of the situation, her brow furrowed in confusion even as a smile played on her lips. I gestured for them to take a seat, then fixed Mick with a steely gaze.
Who is this woman? And what's this about an engagement ring? I've had my suspicions about your recent behavior, but I never thought I'd stumble upon such blatant evidence of your cheating. Well, this clinches it. I need you to sign these papers, Mick.
I was no longer wearing the mask of a smiling saleswoman, but the face of a wife confronting her husband's infidelity. Mick shook his head vehemently, his lips trembling.
What the hell are you talking about? Divorce papers? I just happened to stop by this store for work. This woman is just a colleague here on business. Accusing me of cheating based on that? You're way out of line.
His composure slipping, Mick tried to cover his tracks with angry bluster.
I'm not out of line at all. I have even more evidence of your affair with Amos.
I started to retort, but Amos cut me off.
Wait, are you his wife? Oh my God, what a crazy coincidence. Wow, you look kind of old and tired, huh?
Amos flashed me a smug grin, clearly relishing the chance to throw me off balance as she prattled on.
I know this must sting, but we're seriously so in love. He calls and texts me constantly, always picks me up and drops me off when we go out, buys me anything I even hint at wanting. I'm totally spoiled rotten. He worships the ground I walk on.
She gushed about how adored she was, her voice dripping with self-satisfaction. I could only glare at her in disgust and disbelief. Mick shifted uncomfortably, his expression strained.
You know how men only truly adore one woman in their whole life? Obviously, he's going to choose a young, sweet thing like me over some near-30 hag. Wait, just wait a minute.
Mick interrupted his gloating mistress, his voice raised.
Lena, hang on, she's got it all wrong. She's just a junior colleague, tagging along for sales calls, that's it.
I met his desperate excuses with cool detachment.
Is it normal for your job to involve taking new hires to jewelry stores on sales runs?
Mick sputtered, at a loss for words. He might think I was hitting below the belt, but I was only stating the obvious. His brow furrowed, his face crumpling as if he might cry. But his wounded act only fueled my anger. I was the one who deserved to be in tears right now.
It was a momentary lapse in judgment. She's a new hire, so naive and cute. But I swear, it ends now. Marriage is completely off the table. Please, I'm begging you, forgive me.
Mick braced his hands on the desk and bowed his head in a deep, pleading apology. Amos's eyes went wide with shock.
What? What are you saying? You told me you were going to divorce her and marry me. You shut your mouth.
Mick snapped at her, making her flinch back in fear. I watched their back and forth, my expression unchanging as I shook my head.
Trying to backpedal now is pointless. I can't trust a word you say. And even if you did end things with Amos, the fact remains that you've been neglecting our marriage to carry on this affair for who knows how long. I can't stay with you after that. Let's get divorced today. Go on, sign the papers. Now. You can't expect me to just sign something like that out of the blue.
Why are you two even fighting? Mick says he loves me the most.
Mick refused to sign, and Amos chimed in once again.
Let me make this crystal clear. I have evidence of all your indiscretions from a private investigator, and Juliet knows everything too. Don't think you can wriggle your way out of this. Divorce is your only option. If you won't sign, I'll take you to court.
With that, I folded the divorce papers and shoved them forcefully into Mick's pocket. Seizing the opportunity, Mick grabbed my arm in a vice-like grip.
Don't do anything crazy. I said I'll make things right, that I'm breaking it off with her.
You're hurting me. Let go. And stop making a scene in the store.
As we grappled, Amos inserted herself into the fray once more.
Why are you leaving me? What's so great about your old hag of a wife?
1 minute he was piling on the excuses, the next he was petulantly refusing to divorce. And every time we tried to talk, Amos would interrupt to brag about her relationship with Mick. Nothing we said seemed to get through to either of them. Seeing me at my wit's end, Vanessa picked up the store phone. She quickly called security, probably sensing the danger as Mick put his hands on me. Within minutes, both Mick and his mistress were being dragged out of the store by security guards. Mick looked disgruntled to the very end, but he had brought this on himself with his cheating. It was all his own fault.
That was rough. But you were so brave, standing up for yourself and declaring you want a divorce.
Inside the store, which had regained its former peace and quiet, Vanessa smiled at me.
No, in the end, I'm partly to blame for causing a disturbance. I'm sorry for the trouble I've caused the store. And thank you for having those divorce papers ready. I've been carrying them around because I was worried about you. The choice is yours, but I just want you to be happier.
Nodding, I felt tears spring to my eyes. I had a best friend rooting for me. Juliet and my own father were watching over me too. I resolved then and there that I wouldn't let this break me, that I'd find happiness on my own terms. And when I returned home after finishing my stint at the other store, it seemed Mick had beaten me there. His shoes and coat were in the entryway. Just seeing them was enough to fill me with a chill of pure loathing.
Look, I mean it. I'm done with that girl. So please, reconsider the divorce.
Mick was waiting for me in the living room, groveling with deep apologies. But no amount of bowing and scraping now could undo his repeated betrayals. Besides, Vanessa had once told me that cheaters never really change their ways. Even if I called off the divorce because of his desperate pleas, who's to say he wouldn't do the same thing again down the line? I was done being deceived.
All this time, you've been lying about work to go see Amos.
I said it coldly, then retrieved the photos I'd gotten from the PI, laying them out in front of Mick. His face twisted with chagrin.
After everything you've done, do you have any idea how much you've hurt me? I can't trust you anymore, Mick. I think it's time we went our separate ways.
Then I asked Mick if he'd signed the divorce papers. Like a kid reluctantly showing a test he wanted to hide, he pulled out the documents with a crestfallen expression. There was his signature, plain as day.
I signed, but are you really going to file them?
I pasted on the customer service smile I'd perfected at work.
Thank you for signing. I'll be packing my things and submitting these. Thanks for everything. Goodbye.
Turning my back on Mick's devastated face, I took the signed divorce papers and faced forward. And true to my word, I packed up my belongings that very day, filed the papers, and went back to my childhood home. When he heard what had happened, Danny was furious and heartbroken. But he comforted me and welcomed me back with open arms.
I'm so sorry about that no-good husband of yours. But Lena, you've worked so hard. I'm sure you'll find someone better. As long as you can grab hold of happiness in your own way, that's all that matters to me.
With tears welling up at Danny's overwhelming love, I nodded. The divorce alone wasn't enough to quell the turmoil in my heart. So I dipped into my savings and consulted a lawyer who specialized in divorce cases, deciding to sue Mick and Amos for alimony. With the evidence from the PI, the process went smoothly. I was able to send each of them a certified letter demanding $50,000 in divorce settlements. Naturally, Mick called to protest over and over. But I stood firm, insisting that it was a legally binding claim and I had no intention of backing down. I would absolutely make them pay up. After that, I stayed with my dad for a while as I put in a transfer request at work. As soon as I had a position lined up at another store, I moved out on my own. Living alone, I slowly began to reclaim my peaceful life. Vanessa reached out soon after everything went down, checking in to see how I was doing. When I told her I'd gotten divorced, she sounded relieved and wished me all the success and happiness in the world. Well, fast forward 3 months. One night, as I got home from work, my cell phone suddenly rang. I checked the screen and saw Mick's name. What on earth could he want at this point? I stared at the screen for a while, debating whether to ignore the call. But when it just kept ringing and ringing, I finally gave in and answered.
Hey, you have to do something. At this rate, I won't be able to keep my job. Hell, I won't even be able to survive.
Mick's voice was on the verge of tears as he launched into a rambling tirade. It seemed that after the alimony payments and the credit card bills he'd let pile up, his debt had ballooned out of control. And now that he couldn't lavish gifts on Amos like before, she'd apparently given up on him too. To make matters worse, because Amos was his junior at the company, the whole office had witnessed his pathetic display when I confronted him with the divorce papers. And once Amos realized Mick was broke, she turned on him, spreading all kinds of rumors around work. Like I went on a sales call with him to learn the ropes and he forcibly dragged me to a hotel, or I heard he's been hitting on every new female hire he can get his hands on. Thanks to that, he was constantly getting dirty looks from his coworkers. Forget a promotion, he was about to be stripped of the accounts he'd been managing. It was no surprise Mick was strapped for cash. The truth was, even though Mick was just a regular salesman, I actually made more than him working at the jewelry store. After we got married, we split the living expenses 50-50ths. But big purchases like furniture or the cost of the wedding itself came out of my savings, or Danny would chip in because he wanted to support us. Still, if he'd budgeted carefully, Mick should have been able to build up some savings of his own. But he had a weakness for women and a spending problem, always buying Amos designer bags and jewelry on a whim. When that wasn't enough, he started supplementing with credit cards. But he couldn't keep up with the payments. Throw in the alimony from the divorce settlement, and his debt just kept growing. As for the nasty rumors, I felt a little bad, but there was no denying he had a thing for younger women. Thinking back, when we first met, I was the youngest one at the mixer that night. And I remember when a new batch of recruits joined the company, mostly young girls in the sales department, he mentioned it to me with a telltale slackness in his cheeks.
My debt keeps piling up and I can't pay it off. Plus I've got creditors hounding me for the divorce settlement. At this rate, I'll be drowning in the stuff. Everyone at work knows about the affair and the promotion is off the table. I'm finished. And you're telling me this why, exactly? The alimony has already been decided, so you need to pay up, even if it's bit by bit. As for the rest, isn't it your own fault for chasing after young women even after you got married?
I shut down Mick's blubbering firmly.
Don't be so cold. We were husband and wife once. Help me out here. Lend me some cash, even a little, or introduce me to a new job, something please.
I was so flabbergasted by his selfish, self-serving demands that I had to laugh. Where did he get off asking me for favors after everything he'd done?
You mean the marriage you single-handedly destroyed? There's honestly nothing I can do for you, so you'll have to handle it yourself.
With that, I ended the call. What the hell was that about? No matter what he said, I couldn't muster up an ounce of sympathy for Mick. Exhausted, I collapsed onto the bed and fell asleep before I knew it. A few weeks after that whole debacle, I was working at the store as usual when the door chimed open. I greeted the customer with my standard welcome, bowing my head. But the instant I looked up, I froze in shock. The person marching straight towards me with purposeful strides was none other than Amos, the woman I'd met once before. Her hair was beautifully styled, no doubt the result of expensive salon treatments. Her makeup was the trendy natural look that actually took a lot of effort to achieve. And if I looked closely, she might have had a bit of plastic surgery done. Slung brazenly over her shoulder was the latest bag from a famous designer brand. There was no way she could afford all that on an entry-level salary. I'd bet anything she was blowing the money and gifts she'd wheedled out of Mick on her appearance. The cloying scent of Amos's perfume wafted all the way to the counter. Her lips pressed into a thin line, she narrowed her eyes so viciously it ruined her youthful beauty, glaring at me with pure ugliness. Then she slammed her hand down on the counter and got right up in my face.
Lena, how could you do this to me? My happiness is in shambles because of your selfish actions.
I blinked hard, not understanding what she was talking about. How had Amos even figured out which store I was working at now? Had she been going around to every branch of the same brand, trying to track me down? If so, her tenacity sent a chill down my spine.
Ever since he ran into you that day, Mick stopped loving me. He used to spoil me rotten, give me anything I wanted. I'm not sure what you're referring to. And please keep your voice down in the store.
Ignoring my attempts to calm her, Amos cut me off and kept right on causing a scene.
And nobody told me he'd be broke if you divorced him. I wanted him to leave his wife for me and marry me instead, because he was loaded and treated me like a princess. This is the worst. And why are you demanding alimony from me too? I just wanted to be loved and happy. You've completely ruined my life.
Amos's shrill, hysterical screaming echoed through the store. Other employees started emerging from the back, and passersby began to gather around as well. This kind of disturbance could seriously damage the store's reputation. I had to do something. But before I could frantically formulate a plan, Amos's hand shot out. She lunged across the counter, trying to grab me.
You! If you just stayed out of
coworkers for the trouble I'd caused the store, and thanked the person who'd called the police from the bottom of my heart. Of course they couldn't just let it slide, so a few days later I had to go explain the situation to the higher-ups at corporate. Mick's affair, Amos's outburst, it was all so humiliating to talk about, but this was part of being a responsible adult. In the end, my only punishment was a warning to reaffirm my commitment as a store manager. No concrete penalties. I vowed to buckle down and throw myself into my work with renewed focus. That momentary commotion didn't put a major dent in our sales, and the days passed smoothly. The store was filled with a rainbow of gems, as always: emeralds, topazes, rose quartz, garnets, and the customers who came to purchase them wore the same blissfully happy expressions as ever. It really drove home for me that a jewelry store should be a place of joy. As for Amos, who had caused such a scene, she was questioned by the police afterward. She managed to dodge the charges of interfering with business, but they ended up grilling her about the affair. Word got back to the company via the police that she'd been involved with Mick despite knowing he was married. And she'd tried to cover that up while spreading nasty rumors about him. Now it was her turn to be the office pariah. She was subjected to all kinds of bullying from older women with fearsome reputations, and the rest of her coworkers gave her the cold shoulder. The stress led to mistakes and subpar work. 2 months later, she more or less stopped coming in altogether. A quiet resignation of sorts. As for Mick, even though Amos came out of it worse, the fact remained that he'd cheated. He was still persona non grata at the office. But even with a pay cut, he had to keep earning somehow. So he clung desperately to his position. Then, a few months later, his ballooning debt had him backed into a corner. In a moment of weakness, or maybe temptation from the devil himself, he dipped into company funds. Of course it came out and caused a huge scandal. He was fired on the spot. He went running back to his parents in tears, but Juliet had already heard the whole story from me. She was livid. And of course his father wanted nothing to do with him either. They told him there was nothing left to say and cut him off without hesitation.
We raised you better than to chase some young floozy when you had a good wife at home. You're no son of mine. Don't ever darken our door again.
Juliet reportedly shouted that at him as she tossed him out the front door. I don't know what happened after that, but I never heard about him landing a new job at the same level as his old company. Last I heard, he was scraping by with part-time work while slowly paying off his debts and divorce settlement. But his own living expenses are more than he can handle. It's only a matter of time before it all comes crashing down. As for Juliet, who disowned Mick, she and I actually still keep in touch. Our bond is so strong now, we don't need him as a go-between anymore. I still drop by from time to time for cooking lessons. I'm single again these days, but it's fun to make myself tasty meals. And even more fun to share them with Juliet. Like a pair of gal pals with a bit of an age gap, she and I will keep on getting along famously.
Thank you for your purchase. Wishing you every happiness.
I called out to a customer with a beaming smile as I saw them off at the counter. Today, yet another starry-eyed couple had left with a diamond engagement ring. They looked so blissful walking out arm in arm, I couldn't help but grin myself. My own experiences aside, I never resent the lovebirds and spouses who come into the store. I always want to sincerely celebrate their desire to enshrine their precious feelings in a glittering gem, to carry that promise into their future together. And each time, I'm reminded that this job is my true calling. Now that I've built up a solid track record working in the store, I've been tapped to take on buying trips to Los Angeles and New York. The allure of jewels is endlessly deep, and I'm determined to pour myself into this work with pride from here on out. On my birthday, which was also our 15th wedding anniversary, my husband Robert came home with his mistress Kelly and their secret child Alice.
I want to divorce you and live together with Kelly and Alice. I've already lived with you for 15 years, that's long enough.
He declared, expressing his desire to cherish his mistress and their hidden daughter from now on. I was so shocked by this sudden turn of events that I couldn't gather my thoughts. Above all, I thought it was the worst that Robert didn't even seem the least bit remorseful about having an affair. The other woman was also brazenly fantasizing about living in this house as if it was her own.
When I live here, I'm going to buy that sofa the famous actress recommended,
she exclaimed as the carefree conversation progressed on its own, until it was stopped by my daughter Rebecca.
What are you talking about?
She demanded, her single sentence bringing Robert and Kelly's chatter to an abrupt halt. And with the next words Rebecca uttered, the situation began to change. My name is Sarah. And I'm currently a 40-year-old housewife. My husband Robert is the picture of perfection. He's found success in his work as an education commentator, earning an annual salary of $200,000, and he devotedly engages in childcare as a father on his days off. He always greets the neighbors, and whenever I go grocery shopping at the supermarket, people tell me how envious they are of me.
The neighbors told me again today how jealous they are. Someone saw you cleaning up the signboard that blew over in the wind this morning and thanked you, saying it was a big help, I mentioned.
Wow, someone saw me? Well, contributing to the community you live in is only natural. Robert takes the initiative in contributing to the local area, and no matter where you look, you can't find a single flaw in him. I felt blessed every day to be married to such a husband. And Rebecca has also inherited her father's intelligence. She receives daily tutoring from her dad and consistently ranks at the top of her class in her high-level high school. Apparently, her dream is to become a lawyer, so she makes it a daily habit to read the news in newspapers. If this news story went to trial, I wonder what kind of verdict would be handed down. She mused, pulling out a law book to investigate.
You're amazing, doing this day after day. If it were me, I'd find the research too much work and put it off, I admitted.
It is a lot of work, but I'm learning so much. Once I figure it out, I'll teach you too, Mom. Both Robert and Rebecca are extremely bright, so as the only average housewife, I felt a bit of impatience at times.
Living with you two sometimes makes me feel inferior, like I have no redeeming qualities. Maybe I should study something too.
Really? I actually think you're more amazing than me, Mom. Rebecca countered, and we passed the days in trivial everyday chatter like that. Then one day, Robert brought this up.
Come to think of it, Sarah's 40th birthday is coming up soon. What should we do this year? I'll go buy a cake.
Oh, then I'll make dinner that night. Robert and Rebecca were suggesting ways to celebrate my birthday.
Thank you. Just the thought alone makes me happy.
I expressed my gratitude, getting excited for my birthday. That's when Robert suddenly changed the subject.
Sarah's 40th birthday is one thing, but it's also the day of our 15th wedding anniversary, he pointed out.
Oh wow, 15 years is a milestone anniversary, isn't it? That's right, we had gotten married on my birthday. Since my birthday and our anniversary overlapped every year, he had always prioritized celebrating my birthday. Even though we never celebrated our anniversary, Robert still remembered it.
You remembered.
I choked up with joy from the morning.
Well, look forward to the big day. I'm not good with surprises, but maybe I'll make an effort for you and Rebecca,
he said, which made me so excited for my own birthday. Then a few days later, on my actual birthday, Robert and Rebecca were up preparing from the morning, making dinner and going out to buy a cake. Since it was my birthday, they told me I could go shopping or relax in my room, whatever I wanted to do. It was a rare day where I didn't have to do housework, so I enjoyed shopping until the evening. When Robert arrived home, Rebecca had prepared an extravagant dinner. I bought a few pre-made dishes, but I worked hard on stuff like the potato salad.
Oh, I don't mind at all. I'm just happy you've been preparing this since morning. By the way, where's your dad?
I had thought Robert was helping Rebecca prepare everything, but he was nowhere to be seen. Oh, right after you left this morning, Dad went out to buy a cake. There are plenty of bakeries near our house. And yet, he had been gone since morning without returning until evening, so we started to worry. When I called him, Robert said he would be back soon. There was background noise on the phone, and it sounded like he was in the car.
Oh, Robert, I wonder if he went all the way to a distant shop to buy it for me.
Maybe. Remember when you saw that cake on TV and said it looked delicious? He might have gone to get that one. We eagerly awaited Robert's return with the delicious cake. 30 minutes later, Robert came home carrying a cake box.
Sorry I'm late. I bought Sarah's favorite cake, so put it in the fridge, okay? Now, let's eat the dinner Rebecca prepared first.
Yay! I'm starving, let's dig in. Laughing at their exchange, I took the cake Robert handed me and carried it to the kitchen.
Huh!
Glancing at the cake box, I was surprised. The sticker on the box indicated it was from a shop just a 10-minute walk from our house. I felt a bit embarrassed, having assumed he had driven far in the morning just to buy a cake for me. The cake was likely just a side errand while he was out taking care of other things he wanted to get done on his day off. After finishing our meal and having some cake, Robert cleared his throat and said,
"There's something I need to talk to you two about.
Can you wait here a moment?" Sure. Rebecca and I exchanged glances, wondering what this could be about. Wait, maybe it's a surprise gift for your 15th wedding anniversary? When she said that, I thought she might be right. Rather than cake, he had probably gone out of his way to buy a present. Rebecca nudged my arm with a grin. I'm so jealous. What do you think the present will be? Knowing Dad, maybe a designer handbag or something? Rebecca and I waited for Robert with growing anticipation. Then 10 minutes later, Robert returned. As the living room door opened, the eager looks on my and Rebecca's faces changed in an instant.
What?
Behind Robert stood an unfamiliar woman and child. The woman looked to be in her 20s, wearing a miniskirt, and the elementary school-aged child had a flashy hairstyle. Their appearance was so different from our family that I felt a bit unnerved.
Who are these people?
When I asked, Robert revealed a shocking truth.
Actually, this child is mine.
What?
Rebecca and I cried out in disbelief. We never imagined he would do something like this, so the shock was tremendous. As I stood there dumbfounded, Robert continued.
Sarah and I have lived together for 15 years now. And Rebecca, you're in high school and almost an adult. You two are proper grown-ups now, right?
Robert started creating a strangely sentimental atmosphere. Still unable to process the situation, my gaze darted back and forth between Robert and the woman half hidden behind him.
But this child is still little and she hasn't been able to live together with us. She's had to sneak around, never going out freely. So for their sake, I want you and Rebecca to move out.
Robert was telling me and Rebecca to leave this precious home we had lived in for so long. This was the house Robert and I had bought together, nervously but excitedly, as newlyweds. He tells me to hand over those memories to his lover. What's more, the reason was that he hadn't spent much time with my mistress and illegitimate child, which was extremely harsh, and the sudden turn of events made me reconsider my thoughts.
Wait a minute. What is what Robert's saying true? Is that child really yours?
I doubted it was a lie, as the child looked too different from Rebecca.
Yeah, it's true. This child's name is Alice, and unlike Rebecca, she's a very energetic and bright. Right, Kelly?
Yes. I've been hearing from Robert that Rebecca is a quiet and smart girl. So I was happy that Alice has a completely different personality from Rebecca.
Kelly looked at me and smiled with a sneer. I felt unpleasant about the conversation between Robert and Kelly. When I thought about how Robert was playing around with this woman while I was doing housework and taking care of Rebecca, I felt sick to my stomach.
Mom, are you okay?
Seeing my face turning pale, Rebecca gently rubbed my back. Usually, Robert would have sensed that I was feeling unwell. But with another woman around, he doesn't seem to care about me at all. He keeps looking at Kelly and Alice.
This is the house we're going to live in from now on. We'll give the sofa and TV to Sarah and Rebecca, so let's buy new ones for us.
Yay, I'm so happy. I definitely want the sofa that famous celebrity was recommending.
They were already moving the conversation forward on their own, even though I hadn't said I would give them the house yet. There's no way I'm giving up this house for his mistress.
The conversation is moving forward on its own as if it's already been decided, but I don't want to give up this house. Just get out already.
When I shouted loudly, the room fell silent. Then Robert sighed and spoke to me in an exasperated tone, as if to admonish me.
You know what? This house is standing because of the money I earn, right? So all the authority lies with me. This house is where my family will live from today, so you outsiders need to leave, okay?
The usually kind and gentle Robert spoke in a cruel and terrible way, as if revealing his true nature. Then, with a sneer, he said one last thing.
We're getting divorced today. Sarah, you're 40 years old. It's been 15 years since we got married, so it's a good time. I'll properly pay child support until Rebecca becomes an adult. You can rest assured about that.
Rather, he probably thinks that because he has money, if he says he'll pay, I'll agree. I felt frustrated realizing how much Robert had been looking down on me.
What are you saying?
Amidst all this, Rebecca said that in a calm and low voice.
Huh? What's wrong? Are you sad about being separated from Daddy? Don't worry. Daddy won't forget about you even if we're apart.
That's not it. Dad, you can't divorce Mom, you know?
At Rebecca's words, the room was in an uproar. Huh? What's with this kid?
Aren't you just jealous because we're going to be happy? Now, Kelly, calm down. Rebecca, why did you think that?
Robert asked Rebecca that question with a deliberately exaggerated smile. Then, with Rebecca's further words, the situation changed drastically.
Because that's how it normally is.
Huh?
I don't know about that, and aren't you just saying that to threaten me?
Kelly started to get suspicious about what was going on. I don't know the details either, but looking at Rebecca's usual demeanor, I can tell she's not lying. Robert also knows Rebecca well, so he swallowed hard upon hearing those words.
It's been decided that it's impossible for the person who cheated to demand a divorce. That's why Dad can't say he wants to divorce.
As I listened to Rebecca's story, I realized she was right.
That might be true.
As I said that, Kelly's voice suddenly rose.
Then why don't you guys say you want a divorce? Give Robert to us.
Kelly confronted me like that. Can I trust Robert who cheated on me and rebuild a warm family again? But I also didn't want to give in to Kelly's demands and hand Robert over. As I was at a loss for words, confronted by Kelly, Rebecca came to my aid.
So what do you want to do, Dad?
Well, of course I want to live with Kelly and Alice from now on. You're almost an adult, so you'll be fine living with just Sarah, right?
After hearing Robert's opinion, Rebecca calmly stated,
So even if this child causes you to lose your job, you still want to live with them? What?
Everyone present was confused by Rebecca's words. Pointing at Alice, who was hiding behind Kelly, Rebecca continued.
This kid goes to Franklin Elementary School, doesn't she? How do you know that? It's on the way to my high school. I heard that kid is always causing trouble in the nearby park and getting scolded by the police and teachers. Even at my school, there are rumors that the students from that elementary school are rough. Do you really want to make her your daughter, Dad? Even at the cost of your reputation as an education critic? Rebecca declared.
Upon hearing this, Robert whirled around to face Kelly and Alice, demanding,
Is what Rebecca is saying true? Alice, have you been doing those things?
Alice trembled, hiding behind Kelly. Realizing he wasn't getting anywhere, Robert turned to Kelly.
If the police and teachers are involved, the guardians must know too. Kelly, is it true?
Sweating under Robert's intense gaze, Kelly avoided eye contact.
That's just how elementary school kids are. You're making too big a deal out of it.
While she didn't explicitly confirm it, her response was as good as an admission. Robert began to fret. He was likely imagining what life would be like after marrying Kelly and Alice. His reputation as an education critic would suffer, and he'd undoubtedly face backlash. The once supremely confident Robert was gone. Distraught, he seemed to be feeling anxious about the future.
No. Because of this kid, this is the worst.
But Rebecca apparently still had more to say, relentlessly pressing on.
And Mom, doesn't this woman's face look familiar? Huh?
Kelly and I looked at each other, but nothing came to mind. Kelly also seemed clueless.
A month ago, on the way back from shopping in town, there was a woman in a red dress. I I remember. We bumped into a woman in a red dress and she yelled at us furiously even though it was both our faults. The cake we bought got smashed too. It was awful, but why bring that up now?
When I asked, Rebecca smirked and pointed at Kelly.
That woman was her, wasn't it?
Hearing this, Kelly began to panic.
Huh? I don't remember something that long ago. And what does that have to do with anything now anyway? Don't try to change the subject.
Kelly was visibly flustered. She must have something she wants to hide. Desperately recalling the details of that day, I shouted the words that would send Kelly to hell.
Oh, right. You were with a man other than Robert at that time. Shut up.
Kelly hurriedly tried to stop me, but it was too late. Upon hearing this, Robert immediately fixed his gaze on Kelly.
What? You were cheating? No, that was just a coincidence. And who are you to talk when you're the one cheating? This is the worst. Why is this happening to me?
Kelly flew into a panic at the sudden revelation. This only seemed to further enrage Robert.
My position is completely different from yours, Kelly. It's not like you can just go around cheating too. And with a kid. How could you? And a month ago, we had already decided to get married, hadn't we?
Robert confronted her aggressively as their argument escalated more and more out of control. Half crazed, they continued their absurd bickering. I was left behind with Rebecca, listening to the two of them arguing incessantly. It had become so ridiculous that I finally decided to intervene.
Oh, enough already. Can we just stop this right here? Robert, you're the last person who should be telling someone not to cheat.
I put an end to their foolish and disgraceful bickering.
You say that we have this life because of you. How dare you use those words? At the very least, the reason you've been able to focus on your work is that I've been maintaining our lifestyle. It's not thanks to just one person, it's thanks to our family. And you call yourself an education critic? What a joke.
I scoffed, throwing sarcastic jabs at Robert.
And Kelly, I'm sorry, but did I stir up some unnecessary memories for you? I'm sure this child isn't related to Robert by blood either. You seem to want to marry a wealthy man, but now that it's turned out like this, I pity you. You have my deepest sympathies.
I mocked Kelly with a disparaging tone. The two of them were beside themselves, their plans having gone completely awry.
Ugh! This is an absolute disaster. Everything is ruined.
Kelly tugged at her hair, unable to hide her frustration, perhaps realizing that she wouldn't be able to marry Robert after all.
What? This is the worst. I was going to marry you and provide for you, but forget it. Get out of here, now.
Robert was just as agitated as Kelly, upset that things hadn't worked out for him either.
You think I'd ever come back to a place like this? Alice, we're leaving.
Kelly had shown up out of nowhere, demanding that I divorce Robert, but of course, it didn't go as smoothly as she'd hoped. To make matters worse, her own affair had been exposed. The moment things turned against her, she tried to run away. My birthday and our 15th wedding anniversary were coming to the most disastrous end imaginable. But I wasn't about to let it end like that. I lightly tapped Kelly on the shoulder as she attempted to flee, and said,
"What makes you think you can just leave? You were having an affair with a married man, so I'll be seeking compensation from you." What? That's impossible. I don't have that kind of money. Why don't you just get it from Robert?
Kelly immediately turned around and refused, reacting strongly to the word compensation.
Of course I'll be seeking compensation from Robert too. But you're not family, so the claims will be separate. It's such a shame you won't be able to get married, isn't it?
I said, my voice dripping with sarcasm. Kelly clenched her fists tightly, trembling with frustration and resentment.
If you try to run, I'll consult my lawyer and we'll take this to court.
When Rebecca said that, Kelly begged for mercy, pleading with us to spare her from legal action. We confirmed where to send the future claims and sent her home for the day. With only our family remaining, the house fell into a deep, uncomfortable silence. Robert stood there, head bowed, shaking. I let out a sigh and said,
Rebecca and I will be staying at my parents' house for a while. Maybe it's time you learned how difficult it is to live on your own for once. It's a good opportunity for you to realize that our lifestyle isn't just thanks to you, Dad.
After firmly stating this to Robert, Rebecca and I immediately began packing our bags.
Wait, I'm sorry. I apologize for the affair. Just please, don't go to your parents. You're only apologizing because you're worried about appearances. Losing your wife and daughter would be pretty damaging to your career, wouldn't it?
When I said that, he fell silent, unable to deny the truth of it.
Well then, I won't come back until you've shown some real remorse.
With that, Rebecca and I left. When we arrived at my parents' house and told them everything, they were shocked. They probably never imagined Robert could be that kind of person. But they believed me right away and welcomed us with open arms. Deep down, my parents must have suspected that there was something shady behind Robert's perfect image. It's been almost a month since we started living with my parents. I went back to our house once to pick up some belongings I'd left behind. The place was in a miserable state. Clothes were strewn all over the place, the mail had piled up, and it seemed Robert had been living on nothing but instant meals. Ignoring the state of the room, I gathered only the necessities and left. As I was locking the front door, I ran into one of our neighbors who hurried over to me. I thought they were coming to express concern about Robert, but that wasn't the case at all. They looked at me with sympathetic eyes, as if to say, "You finally managed to get away from Robert." Apparently, Robert's recent behavior had made it immediately clear that I had left him. It seems that Robert, who used to say he would do anything for the community, like pulling weeds on the road, has suddenly turned cold. And for good reason. It was actually me who fixed the sign that had been blown away by the wind, not Robert. Robert had only found the blown-away sign and ordered me to fix it, saying it was in the way of his commute and an eyesore. The neighbors saw the situation and had complimented Robert, saying he was lucky to have a wife like me. But Robert believed he had done it all himself. From the next day onward, Robert worked me even harder to show off more to the neighbors. They had been worried about me for a long time, but when they noticed that Robert had stopped trying to impress them recently, they realized I must have left.
You were worried about me. Thank you so much. How has Robert been lately?
When I asked, they told me, but he had become a terribly troublesome resident. Robert doesn't keep track of the garbage collection days and apparently throws away trash whenever he feels like it. On days when it's not garbage day, after collection is over, he shamelessly throws it out without a care. Even when warned, Robert responds like this.
Oh, is that so? I'm sorry, I didn't know. I'll be more careful next time.
He puts on a show of reflecting with a smile, but he just leaves the trash he brought and walks away ambiguously. No matter how many times he's told, he gives the same response, so the neighbors are fed up with him. I'm so sorry. My husband has been causing trouble for all of you. When I apologized, the neighbors sympathized, saying it must have been hard for me to live with a husband like that. Robert himself probably still thinks he can have friendly relations with the neighbors. But the reality is completely different. Everyone was handling Robert with caution. I chatted with the neighbors for a bit longer and then went home. When I get back to my parents' house, I'll tell Rebecca about this and we'll laugh together. When Rebecca heard the story, she scoffed and shared a memory about Robert.
Come to think of it, whenever I got good grades on tests, Dad would praise me. But instead of saying, Rebecca, you're amazing, he'd say things like, that's because you're my kid, or it's because I taught you. He was always only thinking about himself.
I couldn't contain my laughter at the thought of Robert being spoken of so harshly by his daughter. I almost felt sorry for him. He's probably like this at work too. He goes on assuming he's the only amazing one, and ends up being avoided by the people around him. As this becomes more and more known to the world, his work will likely decrease. That's what I predicted, and it turned out to be spot on. Robert couldn't handle living alone, so he called other women to the house and had them do housework. He says things to make them happy, like wanting them to be his wife, but in reality, they're just convenient housekeepers. The women called to the house couldn't stand that lifestyle, so they leaked to the tabloids that the education critic who has been getting a lot of attention on TV and in magazines lately actually has a sloppy private life. The article spread in an instant, dealing a huge blow to Robert. He had been careful not to let it slip that he might be getting divorced or that he was having an affair in order to maintain his public image, but a small error in judgment exposed it to the world. His work decreased dramatically in no time. On top of that, people who had worked with Robert in the past started saying that he was actually an arrogant person behind the scenes. If it had been just one person, he could have said it was a baseless lie, but as that person's statement was released, more and more testimonies gathered, and it reached a point where he couldn't make excuses. Robert was completely ostracized from the industry. He's desperately trying to make money in other industries, but since his face and name are well known, he'll probably have zero income for the time being. I scoffed as I thought about my future with Robert. I had thought about taking some distance and giving him another chance if he reflected. But that idea might be too soft. I decided to formally file for divorce and mailed the divorce application to our house. I got a huge number of calls from Robert, but I had decided not to answer no matter what, so I kept ignoring them. He'll probably submit the divorce application while regretting his affair. And he'll likely have the childish idea that he can still start over with Kelly. But such thoughts cannot be allowed. Before that, I made her swear never to see Robert again for the rest of her life, along with a claim for compensation. Kelly will definitely keep that promise. A few days ago, Rebecca and I went to Kelly's house. Kelly was living with her parents, so we told them everything too. Kelly's parents apologized to us profusely. They wrote a sworn statement that they would never let her see him again. In fact, I got a call from Kelly's parents saying that Robert had come to visit, but of course they sent him away without letting him see her. Kelly will probably live under the strict supervision of her parents from now on. She won't be allowed to act freely, and she's sure to spend suffocating and boring days. She'll have an inconvenient life where she's not allowed to meet other men. She'll likely regret having an affair with a married man for the rest of her life. I'll make Kelly and Robert go through hell and reflect properly. And I worked hard to give Rebecca even more enjoyable days than the life she's had so far. When I told her I had vowed to do that, it seemed Rebecca had been thinking the same thing.
When I become a lawyer in the future, I should be able to earn more than Dad, so let's definitely get back at him and live in a nice house.
I laughed at Rebecca's strong, spirited words. I'm counting on you. I thought my life would become more joyful, and I looked forward to the future. I'll never forget the shock of running into my husband Kent at our best friend Sarah's baby shower. It seemed Sarah didn't know that Kent and I were married. Anyway, the idea the two of them had a child together. That was beyond belief.
You two look so happy together, I'm almost jealous. Oh dear, to be the odd one out in our trio of friends. Sarah, Kent, I hope you guys find happiness, no matter what.
Sarah nodded with a full-faced smile, while Kent did awkwardly in return. I knew the truth. I knew Kent was the kind of man who'd say, "Pregnancy is not an illness, so don't be lazy." He wouldn't lift a finger to help a pregnant woman. To think he'd cheat on his wife, with our close friend no less, was beyond comprehension. Asking for forgiveness? That was out of the question. I decided it was time for him to lose everything. My name is Lucy. I'm a hairdresser in a small town. This is where I was born and raised. It's not as flashy as the city, but it's a comfortable place to live. The sense of community here is just right, making it a great place to call home. Kent and I were high school classmates. Back then, our friends Sarah and us were known as the inseparable trio, always together. Especially Kent and I were the class's official couple. Whenever someone asked, "Where's Kent right now?" I could answer precisely, often teased, "You're going to make a great wife someday." The third member of our trio, Sarah, was always plugged into her earphones, listening to British music or the radio, dreaming of England. She was one of the top students in our class. Sarah achieved her dream, attending university in England, and after graduating, we only exchanged messages a few times a year. After graduation, I went to vocational school and became a hairdresser. Since my family owned a beauty salon, I started working there. As for Kent, he joined his family's business after attending a local university. That company sold beauty products like shampoo. Interestingly, the company was a business partner of my family's salon. The connection was another reason our relationship was often the subject of playful comments. Kent was reserved, not much of a talker, the opposite of talkative me. Yet strangely, we got along well, and our relationship from high school led to a marriage without a formal proposal. We bought a house in the city, started a new life in a spacious home. Sometime after our marriage, I became pregnant. Overjoyed to be carrying Kent's child, I happily shared the news that night.
Kent, guess what? I'm pregnant.
I was eagerly waiting for his joyous reaction, but what I got was anything but enthusiastic. "Oh, is that so? Aren't you happy?" Silently, he started fiddling with his mobile phone, searching for due dates and birth stories.
The baby will be here next year. Make sure you wrap up your work by then.
Is that all you have to say?
What else is there to say?
I guess nothing. I was honestly disappointed with his attitude, but soon, I found myself in a situation that left no room for such concerns. My first pregnancy was tougher than I had imagined. I used to work full-time, but sudden bouts of illness and doctor's appointments often made it difficult. Reluctantly, I decided to take maternity leave earlier than usual and focus on my health. However, Kent was unsympathetic to my condition. He searched the standard duration of maternity leave on his mobile phone and confronted me with it.
Aren't you taking off too early? Our income will soon decrease.
My job is physically demanding, and everyone's health conditions are different. Besides, my mom said she'd handle the salon while I'm away.
Pregnancy isn't an illness, so don't be coddled. If you're like this, our child won't amount to much.
He would even say such things, even though it's his child too.
If it's my child, it has to be excellent. You need to make an effort too. If you become a lazy housewife, I'll divorce you right away. You've been slacking off with the housework, haven't you? The meals are sloppy, and the house is a mess.
I just can't manage it all right now. I have a limited diet. Can't you at least prepare your own meals? In fact, he was completely reliant on me for household chores. Growing up in a family business, I was accustomed to housework from a young age. Whereas, it seemed he never had to lift a finger at home, thanks to his mother being so diligent. Men in our family don't do housework. It was his mother Catherine's mantra, suggesting a belief that it was a woman's role. While I admired her dedication to household chores, it resulted in Kent being clueless about even basic tasks like laundry. That was a source of quiet frustration for me. As I was pondering how to discuss this with Kent, I suddenly needed to use the restroom. Those who've been pregnant might understand, but at that time, I needed to go quite often.
Sorry, I need to use the restroom.
Again? Aren't you getting a bit old for this?
When the belly grows, bathroom breaks become more frequent.
How disgraceful. You're always complaining about your health lately. It's like living with an old woman.
He then started a long rant about his grievances. But I was desperate to use the restroom. And frankly, I was uncomfortable with his incessant complaints and old woman comparisons, and just wanted to leave. When he finally took a breath,
I need to use the restroom,
I managed to say. But he snapped.
I'm not done talking yet.
Somehow, I endured his lengthy tirade and rushed to the restroom at the last possible moment.
How uncool.
Behind me, his voice could be heard muttering. Initially, his calm and unflappable demeanor was what attracted me to him. However, since finding out about the pregnancy, it feels like everything is backfiring. Moreover, he compares me to various people he reads about online.
That celebrity was back to work right after giving birth, and her figure was perfect too. You'll be the same, right?
I don't know. Don't compare me to such incredible people so casually.
You're both human, just give it a try. Don't disappoint me too much.
Apparently, his expectations were ridiculously high. Besides, his information came from the internet, but he naively believed dubious facts. Every time we met, it led to such conversations, creating a tense atmosphere between us. Around the same time our baby was conceived, he started spending less time at home. Our arguments like the ones I just mentioned were one reason, but he also began going out at night or on weekends, claiming it was for work. That was not something we had seen in our life together before. He was the exact opposite of the increasingly popular image of a cooperative, involved father. One night, when he came home late, I decided to confront him. You've been busy with work lately, haven't you?
I'm cultivating new clients. It's none of your business.
But Kent, have you been drinking?
This is my refreshment. Stop nagging.
His voice was so loud it could be heard outside. Sure enough, I could smell the alcohol on his breath. You never had to drink after work before. What's going on?
You wouldn't understand. Besides.
Thus, his sneering began anew.
You're just lazing around at home while I work every day. This isn't fair.
I'm not lazing around. I'm quite busy preparing for the birth.
That's no excuse to neglect the household chores. You don't even put on makeup anymore. It's like you're using pregnancy as an excuse to abandon your femininity.
That's terrible. Holding back tears, I went to put his bag on the shelf, when something small fell to the floor with a clatter. What are they? Wireless earbuds? I picked them up casually and studied them closely. They were small, shaped like earrings, and in a cute pink color that many women would like.
Don't touch my bag without permission. That's an invasion of privacy.
I always do this. But Kent, you don't usually use earbuds, right? If they're lost, we should return them.
That's for me to worry about. Just focus on your chores. Why can't you even manage that properly?
His reaction was far too intense for just pointing out a lost item. As I was about to respond, I felt a dull impact in my abdomen. He had kicked me.
Don't forget you're being provided for. Keep your unnecessary comments to yourself, or I'll have to rethink things.
I couldn't grasp what had just happened to me. After he stormed off to his room, I sat on the floor in a daze, replaying the recent events. I couldn't see how I had done anything to deserve being kicked. I couldn't comprehend his reaction. The next day, just to be safe, I went to the hospital to check on my baby. I couldn't dare say my husband had kicked me, so I lied that I had fallen at home. Fortunately, there were no abnormalities with the baby, but the area where I was kicked was bruised and discolored. Amidst that, some good news arrived. My best friend Sarah had given birth. She had gone to university in England and I heard she settled there for work, but apparently, she had returned to the US. Ideally, I would have brought Kent along, reuniting the trio of friends after such a long time, but unfortunately, he was away on a business trip. Reluctantly, I went to congratulate her by myself. In the bright, sunlit hospital room, Sarah lay in bed, looking relieved. As I entered the room, she struggled to sit up.
It's been a while. Congratulations on your baby.
Thank you. I actually came back to the US about a year ago but couldn't get in touch, sorry. I'm just glad the baby is safely here. She looked more refined than when she was a student, more grown up. By her pillow, I noticed earbuds identical to the ones I found in Kent's bag. She seemed to notice my gaze. "Oh, these? They're my favorite. I lost one recently, but my honey found it for me."
Really? What's your husband like?
Actually, we're not married yet. You know what? The guy is. Her words were interrupted by a knock on the door. Entering the room was none other than Kent. I was so shocked, I couldn't speak. "You must be surprised. Actually, I'm dating Kent now." She seemed unaware that we were married. She smiled innocently before my eyes.
Hey, long time no see. How's it going?
Kent's shameless demeanor pushed my confusion to the max. It's a reunion of the trio. I started seeing Kent again after returning from England. But with all the paperwork, we haven't married yet. I see. As you can tell, I'm also expecting a baby. I felt an overwhelming urge to reveal everything. But I paused, regaining a bit of calm. I had a baby in my womb. I had to protect my child and myself. I pondered the most effective way to handle this predicament. In the end, I decided to keep things peaceful for now. My husband is on a business trip right now. I really wanted to bring him along today. That's a shame. I wanted to meet your husband. It's really unfortunate. But having a husband like yours who accompanies her must be infinitely better. My husband doesn't help out at all. I secretly glared at Kent. He deliberately looked away. You two look so happy together, I'm almost jealous. Oh dear, to be the odd one out in our trio of friends. Sarah, Kent, I hope you find happiness, no matter what. Sarah nodded with a full-faced smile, while Kent did awkwardly in return. By the way, this is a gift for the baby. I heard you can never have too many bibs, so I got these. I even got matching ones for my baby. That's adorable, thank you. You must be excited about your baby too, Lucy. After a healthy delivery, we should all go out together. At the mention of all of us, Kent's shoulders twitched slightly. I pretended not to notice and continued smiling cheerfully. Hey, let's take a photo while we're here. Sarah, hold the baby. And Kent, get in close. I captured the moment of Sarah holding the baby with Kent beside her in a photo. With a forced smile plastered on my face, I left the hospital room. Before I realized it, I was breathing heavily, my shoulders heaving. From beyond the door, I could hear Sarah's excited voice and Kent's low murmurs. Upon leaving the hospital, I hurried home. I opened my mobile phone and immediately contacted a real estate agent. Yes, I know it's sudden, but I want to sell my house. Yes, right away is fine. I want to complete the process quickly. Could you also refer me to a moving company? I made arrangements to sell the house and contracted a moving company that the real estate agent recommended. Next, I called my in-laws. Catherine? Due to some urgent matters with Kent, I'll be sending over some belongings. Don't be alarmed by the amount. Right, I had decided to erase the house I lived in, as if it never existed. Kent said he would be away on a business trip until the next day. He's probably planning to stay somewhere tonight. While part of me wanted to send the belongings directly to Catherine's house without warning, she wasn't to blame. At least I informed her. After finishing these tasks, I noticed incoming calls from Kent. In fact, since leaving the hospital, he had been calling incessantly. I ignored them and read a book. Then, a message came in.
Let's talk, just the two of us.
What was there to talk about in that situation? Moreover, since the incident where he kicked my abdomen, a sense of caution towards him had sprouted in my mind. At that time, the caution had turned into suspicion, and I didn't even want to hear his voice. Once home, I immediately started packing. I entered his room and without hesitation began boxing up his belongings. Fortunately, it was the off-season for moving. I was able to sign up for a plan where the movers would help pack, making the shipping process smoother than expected. All that was left was to send my own belongings. After contacting my parents, they rushed over and the move was completed promptly. There was something I found in Kent's room. It was a partially completed divorce application. He was planning to leave me for Sarah and marry her. It seemed convenient, so I filled in the rest of the divorce application and decided to keep it safe. Just then, I received a call from Catherine.
Lucy, I knew you were sending some things over, but I had no idea it would be this much. What on earth happened?
The truth is, Kent has been having an affair. Do you remember Sarah from high school? It seems he has a child with her. I could sense her shock over the phone. Despite feeling sorry for her, I continued, I'm sorry, but I have proof. I'll send you a photo. I sent her the photo I took in the hospital room of Sarah, the baby, and Kent together.
I don't want to believe it, but it's true, isn't it?
I wish it wasn't. But it is. I'll be staying at my parents' house from tonight. She apparently tried to contact Kent after that, but couldn't reach him. When she asked if I knew where he might be, I unexpectedly replied that he was no longer family to me. She understood my determination from my response. That evening, I took my essentials and returned to my parents' house, sleeping peacefully in my old room. The next morning, Kent contacted me.
Hey, our house is empty and there's a for sale sign up. What's going on?
Don't you understand? Your home isn't there anymore. For now, your belongings are at your parents' house. I'm changing the locks tomorrow, so coming back would be pointless.
What have you done? Let's talk, at least.
Fine. How about this afternoon at your parents' house? I'll contact your mother. I ended the call quickly and started preparing to go out. That afternoon, the involved parties gathered at my in-laws' house. Kent's parents, my parents, Kent, and me. Catherine's face was noticeably pale. Surprisingly, she was the first to speak.
Kent, is it true that you've been having an affair with your friend Sarah?
Affair? No, we just started dating later, that's all.
I don't want to hear excuses. And now there's a child involved.
Looks like we were just really compatible. The next moment, Catherine punched Kent.
What have you done? Lucy is carrying your child. How could you face her?
I had never seen the usually calm and elegant her like that. A trickle of blood ran from Kent's nose, but he seemed unaware.
Ouch. What are you doing? It's natural for a child to come from a loving relationship. How can you even say that?
I interrupted the parent-child argument. First of all, how did you end up dating Sarah?
I ran into her at the bus terminal while I was out on business. She had just returned to the US and was busy with a new job. She had a charm you didn't, Lucy.
That's not a reason to start a relationship, is it?
Ever since high school, I actually liked Sarah. But she was out of reach, so I settled for you.
I was speechless at his brazen words.
Meeting Sarah again and reminiscing made me realize she didn't have bad feelings for me. There's no reason to stop us now.
He had kept his marriage a secret from Sarah. When Sarah became pregnant soon after they started dating, he considered divorcing me. Around the same time, I became pregnant too. He reached that point without the courage to divorce or the determination to remarry.
How can you justify such selfishness? Aren't you ashamed of two-timing?
Sarah and Lucy are completely different.
Reuniting with Sarah made me realize how unsatisfied I was with Lucy. I plan to remarry Sarah and step up as a man. Don't be absurd. To think my son could do something like this, I'm so disappointed.
Catherine's anger knew no bounds.
If that's how you feel, our parent-child bond is over. You're also fired from the company. You're on your own from now on. That's fine by me.
Honestly, I was skeptical. Could Kent, who had only worked in a small family business, really handle another job?
You have no idea. The reason you could work till now is thanks to Lucy's salon.
What?
Lucy's salon? That small town shop doesn't significantly impact my performance. The only reason you had any success was because her shop promoted our products. Ungrateful.
Listening silently, my parents announced they would cease business with Kent's company.
It can't be helped. I'll start my own business. I'm still young, I can learn. With Sarah returning to work soon after giving birth, our new life is secure.
I muttered into my mobile phone, so he says. Suddenly, a loud voice echoed.
Are you stupid?
From the beginning of the discussion, I had been on a video call with Sarah.
If I knew you were married to Lucy, I wouldn't have been involved. It's like I'm betraying her too. I'm speechless at your naivety. Frankly, you lack talent as a business person.
Why are you there?
I got in touch with Lucy and decided to join this discussion. I'm glad I heard everything. I never want to see you again.
Wait, don't leave me.
Why should I be with someone as awful as you? I'll raise the baby alone, just don't show your face. Of course, I will expect child support.
Realizing remarriage was off the table, Kent suddenly turned to me, almost pleading.
Lucy, I was wrong. Let's forget everything and raise our child together.
Continue this marriage with such a despicable man? No way. I can't forget the terrible things you've done. The shock of seeing he appear in Sarah's hospital room was fresh in my mind.
Don't spoil the mood. Isn't your kindness your best quality?
Unable to give up, he was staring intently at me. His mouth agape, his nose bloodied and clotted, he was a picture of disgrace. I shook my head slowly. Just because things didn't work out with Sarah, you think you can come back to me? That's too convenient.
But what about you? You'll struggle too, won't you? How do you plan to raise the child?
I have skills, and I'm much better off without a husband like you. I'm not foolish enough to cling to a foolish man. My parents had discussed it with me on the previous day, and they assured me of their full support. Being in customer service, they have good contacts with reputable law firms. I presented the divorce application I had found in his drawer. As you can see, the divorce application is all set. All that's left is to file it. Let's quickly settle the compensation and child support.
Wait, I have to pay both Sarah and you.
Of course. I am your wife, after all. But don't think I'll overlook any negligence towards Sarah's situation either. I have a lawyer ready. He was at his wit's end. At that moment, I felt an unprecedented pain in my abdomen.
Oh my, it hurts.
My labor had started right at that moment. The discussion was obviously adjourned, and I was rushed to the local hospital by my parents. From there, everything happened so quickly. Exhausted from the stress of the discussion and the labor, I fell into a deep sleep in the hospital bed. Even when the nurses woke me up occasionally, I barely opened my eyes. After being discharged and returning home with my baby, I asked my parents about the current situation. My mother, as a hairdresser, had subtly spread rumors about Kent among her clients. Our customers are mostly housewives. A word or two from her was exaggerated and spread quickly throughout the town. On the other hand, Kent tried to start an internet sales company, something he was always interested in. He seemed to have underestimated personal connections, seeking solace in the internet. However, his capabilities did not match the power of word of mouth. The rumors prevented him from finding a bank to finance his business, and it failed to take off. He tasted the bitter consequences of underestimating the local community network he had belittled. There was another thing that damaged him. The video call with Sarah. She had used another camera to record the entire discussion. She edited Kent's selfish behavior into a short video and spread it among our high school classmates. As a result, he lost all his friends, and those who might have helped him also turned away. He was left to solve everything on his own. He was immediately kicked out of his family home and spent his days in a motel, depleting his savings while searching for a new home and job. Being unemployed and without a stable address, it was hard for him to settle down. Eventually, he moved to a distant land as it became uncomfortable for him to stay in the city. He finally found a part-time day job, struggling with the unfamiliar physical labor. Sure, there was no mercy. I warned him that if he ever missed a child support payment, I would sue him for assault for kicking me in the stomach. The photos I took of my injuries in case something happened to the baby proved to be useful. The medical records from when I was treated at the hospital for the injuries would also serve as significant evidence. I filed the divorce papers, and almost concurrently with giving birth, I became a single mother. I was not living alone though. I rent a house and decided to live with Sarah. It was the four of us, Sarah, our babies, and me. The children got along as if they were siblings. Sarah and I were best friends to begin with. With Kent out of the picture, our friendship as women only grew stronger. When one of us needed to step out, the other would take care of both babies, allowing us to manage work and have some time to refresh. We're already talking about taking our kids to the park together for the first time once they're a bit older. For now, I'm looking forward to enjoying this comfortable life.
Children are a nuisance, so go to a facility. Who said I have a mom?
My name is Madison. I'm in the 5th grade, living with my dad and mom. Dad is really kind, and he takes me out on his days off. Mom acts normal when Dad is around, but when he's not, she seems cold and distant, making it a bit hard to talk to her.
See you.
Dad, as usual, leaves for work early in the morning. As I eat breakfast. I'll see you later, I said. Checking the clock, it's almost time for me to go to school. I need to hurry up and get dressed after eating quickly. Thanks for the meal. After finishing, I place my dishes in the sink and head to my room to change. Wait. Mom stops me, pointing to the sink. Who's going to wash these? Her eyes are cold, almost angry. Normally, I'd just change and go to school, but it felt like I'd be scolded if I did.
I'll wash them,
I murmured. What? I can't hear you, you're too quiet. Mom suddenly yells. My body trembles. But feeling guilty, I apologize.
I'm sorry. I'll wash them.
Of course.
From now on, take care of your own things.
Mom angrily tosses her apron on the sofa and goes to her room. Reflecting on her words, I wash the breakfast dishes and leave for school. At school, while talking with friends, the conversation turns to parents. Hearing their stories, everyone else's moms seem kind, and though they get scolded, they seem close. What's your mom like? Suddenly asked by a friend, I'm at a loss for words. But I think maybe it's my misunderstanding that mom is cold, and her bad mood is because I haven't been doing things for myself.
She's very kind,
I respond. Hearing this, my friend says,
That's nice.
But I feel conflicted inside. I'm home. When I return home, Mom isn't there. Maybe she went shopping, I think, and start my homework in my room. Before I know it, it's dark outside, and it's dinner time, but she hasn't come back yet. Then, I hear noises from the entrance and the fridge opening. Stepping out of my room, I see her in the kitchen. I am so hungry, so I go to the kitchen. Welcome back, I said to her, and she responds,
I'm back.
Her brief reply without looking back indicates she's still in a bad mood.
What's for dinner tonight?
I ask cheerfully. But maybe that was a mistake. When Mom turns around, her face looks scary. Huh?
I told you to do things for yourself, didn't I?
Dad will be back soon, and I'm busy cooking. Unable to say anything more to her, I start to make instant noodles when Dad comes home.
Hello.
Hearing Dad's voice, Mom quickly takes the instant noodles from my hands. Confused about what to do, Dad enters the kitchen.
Oh. Are we starting dinner now?
Seeing Dad's kind face, I almost cry. Welcome back.
Just got back from shopping. Dinner will be ready soon. Just wait a bit more.
Mom's face softens. I can't tell if she's still angry, but the thought of eating Mom's cooking makes me happy. Later, we have dinner as a family, and I have a fun time playing games with Dad. Maybe Mom was just in a slightly bad mood. Thinking that there won't be any more scolding if I take care of myself properly, I fall asleep. From the next day, I try my best to do things by myself. I wash the breakfast dishes, fold the laundry, put it away, vacuum my room. And when Mom comes home late, I make instant noodles for myself. Thinking that this will surely make her happy, my face breaks into a smile. Mom hasn't praised me yet, but she's getting less angry. When Dad is around, the three of us have a good time together. I was happy about that. One time, I heard a groaning noise and woke up in the middle of the night. Thinking it might be a ghost, I dove under the covers. The groaning continued for a while, and as I trembled with fear, suddenly I heard an ambulance. It stopped nearby, and I realized it was right outside our house. Wondering who it was, I got out of bed and saw Dad being carried out.
Dad!
I shouted, rushing over. Dad looked pale and was sweating, obviously in a lot of pain. Tears came to my eyes, and clinging to the paramedic.
Please save Dad!
I begged. The paramedic put a hand on my head.
We're taking him to the hospital now,
he said. Then Mom and I followed the ambulance to the hospital, where Dad was taken away. We could only wait in the designated area. I was filled with anxiety, wondering what would happen if we lost Dad. But Mom, next to me, was handling her phone, not seeming worried at all. I cried alone, waiting for someone to tell me it was going to be okay. After what felt like an eternity, a doctor came over to us. Mom and the doctor spoke about something complicated, and all I understood was that Dad was ill and needed to be hospitalized. I was shocked that Dad had to fight a disease, and he couldn't come home for a while. Mom and I went home for now. After preparing for Dad's hospital stay, Mom left for the hospital again. Left alone at home, I lay in bed unable to sleep, and soon it was bright outside since it was early morning. School. I had to go to school. But I didn't feel like it. I didn't feel like eating, and just stayed under the covers. Aren't you going to school? Mom noticed me at noon. She didn't scold me for missing school but seemed busy and left for the hospital right away. Having eaten nothing since morning, I went to the kitchen. I ate the leftovers from last night's dinner as my meal. In the evening, Mom came back. She brought sandwiches. Eat this today.
I also bought some instant noodles for you to eat from tomorrow.
Okay. Thank you. I decided to follow her instructions, not wanting to bother her as she was busy with Dad. The next day, after having instant noodles for breakfast, I went to school. My friends asked why I was absent yesterday, and I lied, saying I felt sick. The teacher, seeming to know the situation, spoke kindly to me. When I got home, Mom wasn't there, probably at the hospital with Dad. I wanted to see Dad too. I thought I'd ask Mom to take me on the next day off. While doing my homework, the phone rang. I was the only one home, so I answered. Hello? Oh, Madison? What are you doing? It was Dad on the phone, and hearing his voice made me cry.
Dad! Are you okay now? I want to see you.
Hearing me cry, he spoke gently.
Sorry to worry you. I'm okay now. I want to see you too. I'd be happy if you could come with Mom.
Yeah. I'll ask her.
Okay. Oh, is she there?
I wondered where she was. She wasn't at home. I thought she was at Dad's hospital.
Mom isn't here. Isn't she at the hospital?
Hearing this, Dad seemed to realize something and spoke evasively.
Right. She just left a while ago. She'll be back soon. Madison, have you had something to eat?
Yeah. Mom bought some instant noodles and stuff. After I said that, he was silent for a moment, then.
Is that so?
He said, before changing the subject. After talking with him for a while, I heard the front door open, so I told him she was back. Dad asked me to hand the phone to her. And when she, who had just returned, took over the phone, she looked a bit shaken as she talked to Dad. I went back to my room, noticing the smell of cigarettes on her and wondering where she had been. The next day, Mom asked if I wanted to go to the hospital with her. I said yes, even though she seemed a bit reluctant, but she took me. Seeing Dad after a long time. He was connected to Infor but smiled when he saw me.
Madison! You came.
I hugged him. Seeing him looking well made me want to cry again, but I was so happy to see him. After talking with him for a while, Mom said it was time to go, and we left the room reluctantly. As I looked back, he was waving at me with a smile.
Come visit again,
he said. But I never thought that would be our last conversation. His condition suddenly worsened, and he passed away in no time. I couldn't believe he was gone, as Mom instructed me to wear mourning attire and took me to the funeral home. Many people came to say goodbye to him. Seeing Mom's detached demeanor made me wonder if Dad was really gone. Standing at the edge of the room, someone approached me. "Hey, aren't you Madison?" I turned around to see a woman standing behind me. I was confused, not recognizing her, and she sat down next to me. "It's been so long. I'm your aunt, Madison, your dad's sister." Looking at her, I saw she resembled Dad. I had no memory of an aunt, but I remembered Dad talking about his sister. "Aunt." "Yes, your aunt. Don't I look like your dad?" She laughed, looking just like Dad. Then she suddenly hugged me.
It's okay to cry. You've been strong, Madison.
I must have been crying already because her words made me cry even more. It felt like the moment I realized I would never see Dad again. After a while, as my aunt soothed me, I thanked her and went to get a drink. When I entered the room, Mom was there. Seeing my tear-streaked face, she said coldly, "What? You cried? What an embarrassing face." Her words hurt.
Mom, aren't you sad?
I couldn't help asking her, seeing she wasn't grieving. There's no point in being sad. He's gone. I trembled at Mom's cold words. I wondered if she hated Dad, despite all the happy times we had as a family. As I stood frozen, my aunt came over. "Oh, long time no see," she said with a smile, and Mom's expression changed. "Oh, it's been a while. Anything I can help with?" "No. There's nothing." "Then, Madison, let's go over there." My aunt took my hand and led me out of the room. It was clear that Mom was uncomfortable around her. Afterward, I stayed with my aunt until Dad's funeral ended. "Madison, it's time to go." A while after the funeral, Mom came to pick me up. My aunt had been holding my hand the whole time, but she let go to say goodbye. Her face looked a bit sad.
"Madison, see you again."
"Yeah, see you." Reluctantly leaving with Mom, an unfamiliar car pulled up. "Sorry to keep you waiting." A man, apparently Mom's acquaintance, was driving, and she opened the car door. I instinctively resisted getting into the car with a stranger. "Stop dawdling and get in." Mom's tone was unlike anything I'd heard from her before, and I reluctantly got in the car. The car drove in the opposite direction from our home, and I just watched the passing scenery outside. Feeling a bit scared in a car, not knowing where we were heading. "We're here. Get out now." As I was told to get off, there was a large building and I had no idea where I was.
"Mom, where are we?"
I asked, and Mom, lighting a cigarette, replied, "Kids are a nuisance, so off to the facility you go."
"What?"
Not understanding what I was told, a strange man and Mom drove away. I tried to chase the car for a while, but obviously couldn't catch up and gave up when I tripped. Lost and not knowing where to go, I was heading back to where I was left. Then, a car stopped beside me. The window rolled down and it was my aunt in the driver's seat.
"Never thought it'd come to this. Madison, get in."
Relieved to see my aunt, I quickly got into the car. She stroked my head and I cried quietly as my tension melted away.
"How many times are you going to cry today, poor thing?"
Riding in my aunt's car, we arrived at a house. It seemed to be her home. As I was told to come in. "Welcome home." A man's voice greeted us. I instinctively hid behind my aunt. "It's okay." Who laughed and said. I nervously looked at the man, a young guy standing and smiling at me. "Sorry, got you scared, huh? I'm this lady's husband. I guess I'm your uncle, in a way." He extended his hand for a handshake. Comforted by his kind face, I shook his hand, and he smiled again. "You must be hungry, right? We've got dinner ready, you need to eat a lot to grow." Annoying, just like Mom. Hearing their cheerful conversation, I couldn't help but smile too. Then my stomach growled, making me feel embarrassed, and they both burst into laughter. And so, I had a fun dinner time for the first time in a while. After dinner, they let me take a bath and even prepared pajamas for me. Then, "Come here." As I was invited to the living room, they had prepared hot milk for me. Hot milk? Aren't you too old for that, Madison?
Hey! Don't kids love hot milk? No?
In such a cozy atmosphere, I found myself laughing along. And they laughed with me. Then, sit down, we have something to talk about. As I sat down in front of the hot milk, they began to speak.
Hey Madison, how about becoming our child?
I was about to drink my milk and choked on these words.
What?
Sorry. It was abrupt, wasn't it? My uncle patted my back. My aunt laughed.
Become our kid. You don't want to go back to that kind of mom, do you?
I was deep in thought. I didn't hate Mom. But thinking about what happened at home, Dad, and being abandoned, I was honestly scared to go back to her.
Actually, we've been in touch with your dad.
What? I was surprised to hear Dad's name. My aunt explained in detail. The person with Mom was her affair partner, and Dad had realized Mom was cheating. He was very worried about me. Dad's illness had gotten serious, and he might not have long left. He asked them to take care of me after he's gone. Hearing this, I couldn't stop my tears and desperately wanted to see him.
Your dad cared a lot about you and loved you.
My aunt's warm hand stroking my head made me internally shout thank you to Dad multiple times. Dear Dad. Fun-loving Dad. I decided to become strong for Dad. I want to stay with you too. Hearing this, both my aunt and uncle were happy. Staying with them would require some paperwork and might take a while, but they said it was fine to stay together until then. I decided to help out my aunt and uncle as much as I could. Helping with breakfast and dinner, cleaning the bathroom and toilet, until they started worrying that I was doing too much. Told to play like a grade schooler, I couldn't think of anything to do, so I decided to start on my homework.
Madison, were you always doing chores at home?
I was asked by my aunt during dinner. When I nodded, my uncle sitting next to me hugged me.
You've had it tough for a grade schooler. It's normal to help out. But I'm worried you've been pushing yourself too hard.
Indeed, maybe I was trying too hard to get praise from Mom. Realizing something I hadn't been aware of before, I fell silent. All that effort, never praised. I guess she never really cared.
You don't have to worry about anything here. You can help out, but what you should focus on are friends, school, and yourself. Take care of yourself.
My aunt's words resonated with me. My uncle, looking like he might cry, nodded repeatedly. I felt so happy to be with them. 2 weeks after Dad's funeral, I was called to the staff room at school. Wondering what it was about, I was told that Mom had called. The teachers probably didn't know the full story. Thinking it would trouble them if I didn't answer, I picked up the phone with trembling hands. Hello.
Madison. Answer the phone quickly.
Her voice, which I hadn't heard in a long time, was a shout, just like before.
Where are you? You're not at the facility I left you at.
I couldn't find my voice and remained silent.
Are you listening? Well, never mind. I'm coming to pick you up. Then I'll get some allowance money. I need money right now.
Hearing this, I felt my feelings for her cool. To think I wanted love, praise, and even betrayed Dad for someone like this. I was filled with regret. Now I have my aunt and uncle. I have a place where I belong. Dad is watching over me. I can be strong.
I don't have a mom, do I?
Before I knew it, I had said that to her.
What? What are you talking about?
You must be mistaken. Goodbye.
Wait.
I hung up the phone on my own. The teacher beside me looked shocked and asked,
Wasn't that your mom?
To which?
It was a stranger.
I replied. The call was treated as a suspicious call, and the school issued a warning. Worried that Mom might come to pick me up, I called my aunt from the school's payphone. My aunt said she would come right away and soon arrived. She explained the situation to the teachers, who contacted the child welfare office. After I went home, Mom apparently did come to pick me up, but the teachers handled it, and she left reluctantly with a dissatisfied look. Mom never stormed into the school again, but just to be safe, my aunt or uncle started picking me up before school ended. I felt sorry, but my aunt and uncle said, "Don't worry about it." With a smile. Thanks to them, I am living happy days. The teachers at school are also looking out for me, and I'm glad to have so many allies around me. Then, one day, a little while later, the phone rang at home. Lately, I've been answering calls to my aunt and uncle's house. So, as usual, I answered the phone. Hello. The voice I heard was one I didn't want to hear. Oh, Madison? So you were there after all. I froze, recognizing it was Mom. How did she know I was here? Nobody should have told her.
Come back quickly. Things are tough here.
She spoke unilaterally to my silence. According to her, her affair partner's company had gone bankrupt and they were out of money. If she was with me, she could get government assistance and couldn't live without it. She said she was in a de facto marriage with her affair partner and was considering breaking up if they couldn't survive financially. I couldn't quite grasp the story, only understanding that she needed me for money. That's what she had said when she called the school too, so she must be really out of money. As I remained silent, she got increasingly irritated. As I was being yelled at, the phone was taken from me. Turning around in surprise, there stood my aunt, smiling at me. But in the next moment, her face turned into a frightening one.
Answer when spoken to. Are you listening?
Enough.
I can hear you even without the yelling. What?
Mom's voice, audible over the phone, suddenly stopped. I was tense.
Aren't you ashamed to be a mother? Telling your daughter to come back just for money?
That's ridiculous.
What do you think Madison is? You are none of your business. Madison is my daughter. Give her back.
Who was it that left your daughter in front of a facility?
Don't talk so high and mighty. I'll tell the police. Say that she was kidnapped.
Go ahead, say it.
We have evidence of the terrible things you've done to Madison. Actually, please tell the police. It might solve things quicker. What did you say?
Listening to the argument between my aunt and Mom, I felt a bit down, like I was causing trouble. Then, my uncle, who had returned at some point, patted my head from behind.
It's okay. Leave it to us. It's time for the adults to step in.
Saying that, he took my hand and made hot milk again. Madison likes hot milk, right? You drink quite a lot of it.
Yeah. I thought it was delicious the first time I tried it. That's why I like it.
Hearing this, my uncle smiled happily. After a while, my aunt came back to the living room. Seeing my worried look, she awkwardly patted my head. What's with that face? Don't worry. She's no match for me. While fixing my hair.
Thank you,
I said to her. Then I helped with dinner preparation. I never knew helping out could be so enjoyable until I came to my aunt and uncle's house. A few days later, when the phone rang, it was Mom again. Even though my aunt and uncle told me not to answer the phone anymore, I wanted to help them in some way. Madison? Mom is really in trouble. I need your help.
Like I said before, I don't have a mom. Well, what an ungrateful child. Weren't you raised by Mom? Have you forgotten the happy days spent with Dad and me?
The mention of Dad surprised and irritated me.
I had fun when Dad was with me. But the kind one was only Dad. Mom abandoned me.
I was surprised at how loud my voice was when I spoke up. Then I felt my mood clearing. From then on, I talked back to everything she said.
Are you even my child? I didn't abandon you. I just left you there.
You said, kids are a nuisance, so go to the facility.
You said it while laughing. Such a person is not a mom. I was forced to say that. It's not my fault. Still, I was abandoned. So I don't have a mom. If I have a mom, it's Abigail. Dad is Timothy and my deceased dad. Are you brainwashed? Stop talking nonsense and come back quickly.
Before I knew it, I was arguing with Mom while crying. But strangely, I felt lighter, as if I had been holding back a lot until now.
At least, let me live in the house you're staying in. I can't even eat if things stay like this.
No.
Don't bother the people I love.
Suddenly feeling someone's presence, I turned around to see my aunt and uncle standing there. My aunt patted my head. Well said. My uncle nodded, almost crying. Then my aunt took over the phone, talking to Mom. She seemed strangely happy. According to my uncle, he was happy to hear my words.
I'm glad to be called Dad.
He also said to me. It was something I said on my own, but if they're happy, maybe it's okay to think that way? I felt happy too. After that, there were no more calls from Mom for a while. Probably thanks to my aunt and uncle. Since I started living with them, they bought me a mobile phone. I was so excited to have my first mobile phone, and I exchanged contact information with friends who had phones, enjoying more than ever before. On a day of continued peace, the house phone, unusually, rang. Since the incident with Mom, the school had started contacting my aunt or uncle's mobile phones, and I had been given a mobile phone, so calls from friends came to my mobile. Wondering who it could be, I answered hesitantly. Hello. Contrary to my high spirits, the person on the other end sounded very down. Hello, it's me. At first, I didn't recognize who it was and thought it might be a wrong number. I had been told at school not to talk to strangers, so I was about to hang up. It's Mom. You've forgotten my voice? Ah. Upon hearing this, I listened carefully. And indeed, it was Mom's voice, but so lacking in energy that I had not recognized it. You're already in 6th grade, aren't you? There's no one else here right now. Saying that made Mom start to cry. I was stuck, not knowing what to do. Actually, I'm in the hospital. I've fallen ill. What? Hearing about her being sick and in the hospital made me think of Dad. Now, recalling him doesn't make me sad. Rather, I feel energized by the good memories he left me. No one is here to take care of me. Could you come and take care of Mom? And the hospital bills are piling up. I can't pay them. Can you ask Abigail for me?
Say something, will you?
Why should I, a stranger, take care of you?
What? I refuse to pay for the hospital bills. And I won't tell Abigail. Don't get cheeky with me. Don't get too big for your britches.
She sounded too energetic for a sick person. Hearing about Mom being ill didn't shake me like it did when Dad was sick. My feelings for her had truly cooled off inside me. No matter what she said, I no longer felt fear. I didn't want to complain or say anything. Just felt sorry for her. I vowed never to become like her, even when I grow up. I was surprised at how coldly I could respond.
I've been given a mobile phone. And we hardly use the house phone anymore, so it's likely going to be disconnected.
So this is really goodbye. Hearing this, Mom panicked.
Don't say that.
Please?
Oh, then give me your mobile number.
That's impossible.
There's really no one to take care of me. No one to help with money. Then I'll contact someone who seems like they could help.
Mom seemed a bit mistaken by my words, sounding slightly hopeful. Hearing her hopeful voice made me sigh. I asked for the name of the hospital and hung up. Then immediately contacted my aunt. I told her about the conversation, and she worried about me but praised me for handling it well. When I made a request, she agreed and quickly contacted someone. Just as I told Mom, someone who might take care of her. A few days later, I noticed the house phone ringing persistently. It was probably Mom, I thought, and I didn't answer. It continued until night, even when my aunt and uncle came home. When I mentioned the constant ringing, my aunt sighed and answered the phone. Sure enough, it was Mom, and my aunt ended up in a battle with her. Mom kept demanding to talk to me, and my aunt refused. Mom's voice, overheard through the phone.
I didn't hear that my brother was coming. Why did you call him?
She sounded panicked that her own brother had shown up. The person I asked to contact my aunt was Mom's brother. I had remembered hearing before that Mom greatly disliked her brother. He was described as very stubborn, a person of deep loyalty and sentiment. Therefore, her affair was something that couldn't be tolerated. Her brother, having heard about it from my aunt, seemed furious and said he would come to pick her up immediately. Their sibling reunion after several years turned out to be a disaster. That seemed to have directed her anger towards us. My aunt, who had been battling with Mom, was unusually replaced by my uncle, who said,
"Let me handle this."
He is usually very kind, so I wondered if he could handle Mom, but as soon as he took over, his expression became fierce.
"He's scarier than me when he gets angry."
My aunt whispered to me,
"Hey, cut it out. If you're so eager to talk, I'll tell you. I'll make you apologize in front of Madison. Sick or not, it doesn't matter. Be ready."
My uncle yelled, and then apparently Mom hung up the phone.
She hung up.
After the call, my uncle was his usual self, laughing. It seems true that people who rarely get angry can be frightening when they do. After that, Mom was forcibly taken to her brother's house. It turned out that her illness was something that could be cured quickly, and she was able to leave the hospital soon. Mom, who had planned a lavish life with her affair partner, was taken to her brother's farm and had to help with farm work while living there. She initially resisted the farm work, but under her brother's pressure, she begrudgingly worked. Of course, she couldn't afford to buy luxury brands anymore and had to use second-hand clothes given by the villagers. As for me, it seems that all the paperwork was completed, and I was able to become the child of my aunt and uncle. They threw a celebration party for me, and I laughed more than ever before. And surprisingly, I found out that next year I would have a little brother or sister, which made me very happy. I resolved to cherish my family. From the bottom of my heart, that's what I think.